Welcome, welcome, welcome. Please stand for the pledge and an invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Burke.
Let us pray. Lord, we thank you for the many blessings you continually give us. Thank you for the blessings of this college and for the good people who do the work of the college. Please continue to bless our students and help guide them. Lord, we also acknowledge during this holy time of year as we celebrate Christmas and Hanukkah and so many holidays, we just acknowledge your presence with us and thank you for the gifts that you have given us. We ask your guidance upon this meeting, and please help as we go about the planning for this future of the college to give us the guidance and the wisdom that we need to do your work. We ask all this and give you praise through your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. I am very pleased at this point to be able to turn this entire great program over to this guy right here, Dr. Law. That's one of the best things I'm going to do.
Well, so far we're ahead of schedule, and we'll see if we can't do that. Thank you for arranging your time and your focus. Clearly, you know, as I'm often reminded, Dwight Eisenhower said, plans are nothing, planning is everything. So getting ourselves prepared as we move forward. Today is a day I've been looking forward to for a long time. We sensed that we would be adding new members to our board, and that has happened, and we're delighted to have the chance to get us in a room where we're not rushing decisions past you as new board members. Candidly, what I've tried to do is to say in 3 hours we can cover a lot of ground. We can't cover all the ground that has to be done. Let's make sure we tee up key items that you are likely to hear about or see in the newspaper. As you come out of church, somebody's going to say, my son or daughter is impacted this way, or we read this. Certainly, we know some of the public trends that are happening, and we're trying to give you information about how we're responding. I think in some cases we're ahead of the curve. In some cases we're running to get on the curve. And then we want to finish up as we come forward with some budget stuff. We've changed the order just a little bit, so we'll finish with budget and start with some of the student-related items at the front of the discussion. We want. Here's the curious part. In most planning sessions, you would do all the talking, okay? And we really want you to own the environment here as we get moving. Because we have some new members and we want to be sure they are comfortable with the contribution, we're going to present a little more information than we might normally do in this setting. But that way you have a chance then to put things in context, can ask questions that I think are informed, and give us guidance moving forward. At each point, though, we want to take the next step in what I sense is the direction that the governor is trying to push us. And we've started down that trail, but I think with new members we can do better, is to develop clear metrics as to what are the outcomes that we expect, how will we measure that, how will you as a board give us guidance, and how we can demonstrate your leadership to us. So it's not brand new to us, but I think it's going to be a lot more structured than we've seen in the past. So, you know, we're ready for that. I think when we use the collaborative labs, let me be sure everybody's got the a revised schedule in front of you. We sent everybody the electronic stuff. You have a printed version. That's sometimes easier in the meetings. Mr. Chairman, we'll trust you on the ebb and flow as we move through all this to make sure the timing stays pretty tidy. We have been through a dress rehearsal of the presentations, but they tend to run a little longer even than our fondest dreams hope for. Andrea. Go ahead, you know how to tee this up.
Outstanding. Welcome, Board of Trustees. It is such an honor to have you here today. Thank you for this opportunity. Just for your own knowledge, we have been in existence for 7 years now, and we've helped over 700 organizations, and today rates as one of our top 10. Right? So we are so delighted because we want to support our own first, and then we go out into the community, into the state, into the nation. Let me share with you what's in store for today. The cool thing about our environment is your chairs swivel around, they even rock and roll. And so as we get to some good content today, we'll see you moving today. The first thing we're going to do is we always build on strengths versus weaknesses. So we have assembled quite a list of achievements that our college has accomplished over the last 18 months. We'd like to just get a snapshot of some of the great things we've achieved, and then that will help us as we go into the ideal future, so we can leverage all the strengths that we currently have. So stay tuned for that in a moment. The next part, and the lion's share of our agenda, is to look at great expectations for the next 18 months. So what are our strategic priorities? What are the metrics? Because what gets measured gets done. And we are going to kind of divide it into 4 segments. The first segment will have to do with life plan college experience. And after each segment, we will kick it off with some riveting presentations, followed by some rich collaborative discussion around these strategic priorities and metrics. Then we'll move to financial aid. We'll have more presentations to enlighten us, more collaborative discussion that we will capture. We will kind of continue to bubble up and elevate our top strategic priorities going forward. Then we're going to focus on workforce, distance learning, global and international. Again, do collaborative discussion after that. And we will end it with everyone's favorite topic, which is budget and cost, and have more collaborative discussions. So does that sound like a good way to utilize our 3 hours together? Very good. I'd like to also introduce you to the blue team. Actually, Joyce is over here on keyboard, and she will be capturing our real-time record, which is a little bit different than the traditional meeting notes. Be a little bit more dynamic, so stay tuned for that tomorrow. That will be in your email. Over here we have Jonathan, and he is our visual illustrator. So visual learners in the house, visual people, pictures speak to you. So our clients really enjoy this because what it does is it puts in a single picture the future vision, you know, the mural, kind of like a vision mural. Everything's in there. So all that we put together will be contained in this vision mural. And when he does get excited, he does interpretive dance. That has not, it's not happened recently. I'm feeling it, Jonathan. And then Alan will be helping us as well. He's our business development officer. He'll also be helping to drive our think tank, our brainstorming software. PJ Petrick is also part of our team. So that's our collaborative labs team. It's great to support you today. So let us begin with greatest achievements over the past 18 months. And Board of Trustee members, please chime in as you have one, but we're just going to, within the next 10 minutes or so, move quickly through and highlight some of our greatest accomplishments. Let's start with budget and cost. And I'll just call on anyone who would have one. Doug, please.
That's not part of the dress rehearsal. Let me just highlight a few things. You know, our division supports everything the academic programs do, and then the student services and so on. And we feel like we accomplished a lot in the last 18 months. I highlighted a few things. One more recently, you know, we did a major redesign of our health insurance plan. Last year in the budget process, we were also able to move budgeting out into the hands of the student government organizations for a portion of the student activities budget. That was a great experience if you saw them do their presentations. It was a really good part of the budgeting process. We also, along that same line, provosts have their own PICO general renovation maintenance funds now that they manage and that they did not have in the past. We've developed a guaranteed schedule, which we've integrated into our operating budget. That's been a lot of work that we put into that, and you'll see more of that as we go through the budget process next year. Big part over in HR, we have a much more proactive faculty hiring plan. As you've seen, we've got that kicked off very early in the year, and we think that that's helping us a great deal in planning for the next academic year. Another big one is the faculty compensation plan. Was developed, implemented, a lot of work put into that by the faculty governance organization and the staff to get that going. We'll be in year 2 of it next year. On a little broader scale, last year when we went through our first budgeting process with Dr. Law, no question that it was probably, and I think most people would agree, one of the more transparent, open processes that we had. Everybody did budget presentations, and we've tweaked that. We'll improve on it next year as we learn more. Another big one in the last 18 months is we've got about 95% of our technology is now funded with recurring streams of revenue. So we know about every 3 to 4 years that we will be able to replace our technology. So that's been a big one. Something you'll see a little bit more of in January and the rest of the year is our business intelligence system has now gone into production. And I know Jesse and some of his folks have worked a lot of hours with our staff on that. And we think that's going to be a real help in bringing more timely, comprehensive information to you. The SharePoint system, we implemented, that was one of the first things we did when Dr. Law got here. And it's widely used now for document sharing. We're sort of moving into the next phase of it. We're going to use it for workflow. In fact, you'll see shortly that we've just developed the BOT agenda planning workflow. A couple more quick things. One that has been a great success, the student textbook credit, which you all responsible for allowing us to do. And the students, we were over 900,000 last year, and it's going strong this year. But we recouped about 400,000 of that so far, just in increased sales. So we also added what's called a web time system, which 3 years ago we were still doing paper payroll. I mean, certs, people were signing off, and everybody remember. It's now all automated. We did a bolt-on to our PeopleSoft system, and now it's all done online, so it's been a great improvement. A lot of other wonderful things up here that the folks have done, and that just highlights a few. So, cool. Okay.
How about the financial aid area?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Todd Smith, Director of Financial Assistance Services. I just share briefly some of the biggest things that we've done. I like to wrap it up this way. The biggest thing that we've done in financial aid, we've made it easier for our students, our consumers, and our clients to do business with us. One of the things that we've done from the standpoint of our website, we've made it more user-friendly and more robust. It's easier for our students to go to our website and find out exactly what they need to know about financial aid. We provided more resources from the standpoint of financial aid TV. The student can go into our website at any time, 24/7, and get important, pertinent information as it relates to financial aid. The biggest thing, I think, more than anything else, is we got to look at production. What we've been able to churn out from the increased demand that we've had on our services in the last few years. Basically, if you look at what we've done so far this fall, we've already surpassed what we did all of last year. If you take a look at summer processing, and summer has been a nightmare the past 2 years just because of regulations. But in spite of all of that, and in spite of the increased demand during summer processing, we've more than doubled our summer processing in a fraction of the time. That says a lot when it comes to excellent customer service. And the last thing I would have to say is, again, one of the things that you will see, a huge number of our students depend on financial aid to continue their educational endeavors, and we've stepped up to the plate to make sure that they're able to do that without any problems at all.
Thank you. Good work. How about the workforce area?
Let me be sure we introduce everybody.
Yes.
Stan Vinito is the provost of our Clearwater campus and serves a dual role as the lead officer for workforce development activities.
I'll just mention a couple of things, and they're really examples of things that we should probably highlight from a number of programs. But, for example, 105 students placed in our public safety program. Bachelor's degree programs, we think of the bachelor's degrees as being kind of this new thing that's kind of going to be big, but already we have over 6,000 students in it and more than 4,400 graduates to date. And those programs are focused on workforce. We don't have programs that lead to liberal arts degrees. Our programs are all focused on specific occupations, robotics and prosthetics, nursing, public safety, technology, that kind of thing. A new program that we rolled out this year called Learn to Earn. This was really the brainchild of Dr. Law, but it focused on the people who are unemployed in this county and developing short-term training programs, things as short as 1 day or maybe several weeks, help them get back in the workforce. Many of those people are unable to take a traditional program, but we looked at what are the short-term programs we could use or develop to get them back in the workforce. We have very innovative programs. One of them I like to highlight is the Music Industry Recording Arts Program. And this is a program that surprisingly is able to place students in jobs in the entertainment industry. And frankly, there are a whole lot of jobs involving music, whether it's on a website or it's for a commercial or a television station, any of those kinds of things. Just several examples of some innovative things that we're doing in the workforce.
And we had so many greatest achievements, we had to add an other category. So does anyone have any other greatest achievements that only fit in this wall?
The hiring of Dr. Law.
Well, that was last year. That's last year.
18 months.
Yes.
18
It's at the very edge of the 18 months.
Exactly.
And I would say also the formation, well, it's up there, the Career Employees Council, very big thing.
The Center of Excellence for Teaching and Learning, you'll hear more about that. They're doing some really good work in the faculty development. They are fully invested. Here's the stand reference to Learn to Earn program, which is short course, skills-based. We knock the prices down so that anyone who's out of work has a chance to rifle shot skills that they might want to grab and get to work. We've got some numbers later on as to the growth of that program, but it's been quite successful.
How many people are in it?
Stan, give me how many people have we signed up?
We're approaching 1,000 enrollments.
So people take short courses. We've had 1,000 enrollments already in that program. Okay, so
When's a good time to ask some questions about it?
you ask questions anytime you want. We're going to do presentations in all these areas.
Okay.
So
There-
let's do that. Let's get through
You
this.
Okay.
Other than that, we'll have to adjust the agenda. You should feel free at any
Okay.
point. We did a nice thing, I think. We put the acronyms in the front of your book, okay? So if we've been a little bit tidy, but I'm sure we're not going to be perfect on that. You'll find a copy of acronyms, okay? Let's go ahead, distance learning. Ann and Jim, jump in here. Go ahead, Ann, you're
Okay.
going to make the presentation today.
We've increased the number of in-service online courses. We've also got the largest fire science program that's available online in the nation. We're oftentimes winners of various national awards for our faculty and our students. We've expanded the number of online reusable learning objects that faculty can incorporate into their courses. We've also increased the number of online courses that are using e-text as well as other instructional modalities using e-text, which is the online version of the textbook, which is less expensive for the student. For example, College Success Skills has college-wide e-text for the students, and we are focusing more on success than just on growth and expansion.
Senior Vice President Ann Cooper serves as the Chief Academic Officer. Okay, behind you is Dr. Jim Oliver, Provost for Seminole Campus, but then also serves as the director of our eCampus as well. Okay.
And just to give the new board members some context, St. Pete College has been a big player in distance learning. We had the first online course in the state among state colleges and community colleges in Vet Tech in '95. We were named the Distance Learning Program of the Year by the Instructional Technology Conference Council in 1994. And we currently are either the first, depending on how you count, we're either the first or second largest provider of distance learning among the state colleges and community colleges. So a big part of what we do, as you'll see later in the
We have
numbers.
a really good presentation on that. Global International, we've got Rod Davis and Karen White, the provost at the St. Pete Gibbs campus. Also serves as our director for that. Rod is the day-to-day director, interim director for Global Studies.
Well, good morning. If I could touch on a couple things. Student and faculty visit in North Ireland. We are looking at the two new Hellenic study courses, Greek philosophy, Greek culture. The purpose preparation for students in the global economy, that's a huge focus, and I'll address that as we go on. We've had some recent Canada agreements with faculty and students, and there's been a lot of talks about that. That's sort of been working out pretty well. Hopefully some business exchanges in Toronto. We've also looked at the expansion of general education and global course options. Study abroad to Spain, summer of 2010. We have 6 trips geared up, ready to go now. Development of a model of a UN cohort, and we're trying to expand to national conventions, New York and DC. And there's been a lot of talks about some of the things that we are getting ready to do. I've been in a position for 3 months and looking forward to looking at some of these expansions and some of these new programs in these areas. And we'll talk a little bit more about it as we go along. Thank you.
All right, good morning.
Vice President Tanja Williams heads my student services activities.
The first thing we have done over the last 18 months, we have completed some very good national assessments, the SESI, which is an assessment for students enrolled in college, and then we've completed the ESSI, which is a survey for newly enrolled students, and we'll be using the data from that to help us plan forward on how we're going to serve our students. We have instituted a mandatory face-to-face orientation for our students, especially those who tested into 2 or more developmental courses, so that those students can get off to a better start. And those students will also have to take, and they have been taking, SLS 1101, which is a course that helps our students on board and get things started and understand how the college works. We've also created training profiles for our student services staff to be able to provide better service for our students going forward as they come on board. Our provosts have been working very hard with the district team in creating a great college experience and getting students started on board. And you'll see a whole lot of really good things we've done. We have automated our payment plan so students don't have to come in to get a payment plan as they've done in the past, where we had folks having to co-sign and do all those types of things. We put together the phase 1 of our learning plan so that students will have a robust plan to share with their families and themselves on here's why I'm here, here's where I'm going, here's what I'd like to do. And you'll see a lot of stuff that we've been doing, from working with our at-risk students going forward and our foster children who've aged out. We have a program where we're working with them now to come to college to help them reach their dreams as well. So I look forward to sharing more with you going forward. Thank you.
I will do this piece, but it leads to the first part of the regular presentation, so we'll catch up. You see all of these many efforts, and we can tell you how excited we are, and we've got everybody mobilized. I think we're increasingly focused on student success and what happens to our students when they get to us. I think if you make an assessment of what works in our part of the industry and what doesn't work, we're quite good at getting people in and getting them started. I think the focus now is getting students through and being successful so that there's a much higher throughput, much better use of human capital, much better use of public dollars and those sorts of things. We have lived our whole life on saying access, giving access is what we do for a living, and there's nothing wrong with that. But in the end, that access has to lead to a successful completion, and that's the part that we haven't worked on very well. While we're going to tell you all about financial aid, the fact of the matter is too many of our students walk away from their commitment. The patterns of course taking are very troublesome for students who register for courses and then don't successfully complete them. Students who seem to be wandering through our entire college. I charged the college starting in August to very carefully analyze how students make their way through us, and to then analyze how we might more planfully focus the resources in helping students get through. And we put that under a project that we call Life Plan. The challenge I gave us is to say, by May, at your May board meeting, we will bring you a report. And I trust that report will have recommendations with it. But here's the deal. I don't think, I've challenged us to say, it doesn't make sense for us to limit how many courses a student can take based on their success, their prior success. If you sign up for 5 courses and you walk away from 2, maybe all you can really succeed in is 3. Maybe we shouldn't make 2 more courses available, especially because there's a growing sense that some of that is financial aid driven. Students signing up for extra courses so that they can get additional financial aid. They're not, in fact, capable in many cases. Their life is too complex. Their background is not as strong as it needs to be. They can't pass it. So I said, do an analysis. What would happen if we said, below a certain threshold of completed courses, a student we will limit how many courses a student can take. When they get steadier, they can elevate how many courses that would be. So if you take 5 and drop 2, the next semester you could only sign up for 3 courses. If you pass 3, the next semester you could take 4. You could work your way back to doing that. And my theory is eventually students will stay with us better. We know that as students fall through the successfully completed, not the low GPA, the successfully completed courses, there's certain thresholds where they go off financial aid or they just lose heart and drop out. And I suspect that if we could shortstop that, more students would stay with us. We would slow their progress down a little bit, but they wouldn't find themselves driving off the cliff by overextending themselves. So we're in the middle of that discussion. It has 2 or 3 residual parts that are really important. If we're going to restrict students, there's a big financial component, so we're doing that analysis too, and we've got that. One, I have to know that students they know how to succeed. And you will hear us put a great deal of emphasis today on individualized plans for every student. I think we're ready to, by this time next year, if we don't have it for every student, we will roll out a very robust individualized plan that the student has worked with us to say, this is how I am going to move forward. We can monitor that, we can see how it works. Throughout the day, you will see this jump up at us. If we had that in place now, a lot of the things that are very inefficient for us and very frustrating for students would go away. The second is a much bigger commitment to out-of-class support. For our students, a seat in the classroom or a seat online is not sufficient for most of them. They need more time and more help to be successful. If we can change the time variable, we can change the success variable. But if we say it has to happen this week, on Friday, we're going to test, and you're on your own, too many of our students won't make it. If they have help outside of class, I think we can do a much better job. Faculty have to assist us by making that out-of-class support more robust. So we've got 2 or 3 very good initiatives working through. Whatever the recommendation is, I'll bring to you, but we'll be stronger on the learning plans. They're going to happen. That's it. Whether we do this or not, we're going to have learning plans. Whether we do this or not, we're going to have stronger out-of-class support for our students and a better faculty engagement on those 3 things. I think that, as I often say, we would not let people we love demonstrate the course patterns that we see in too many of our students. We would intervene with family members if we saw, maybe I'm telling my own tale. I stopped writing checks when my kids stopped going to class. It wasn't a happy discussion around the kitchen table, but that was what we had to do because we couldn't get done what we wanted to do. And I don't know that I can be parental for all of our students, but I don't think we ought to let students think that they're succeeding when they're not. So I'm trying to find the middle ground on that. Very serious issue. I'm convinced there's a lot of, despite some hard decisions that we have to make, I just can't let us have students, 30% of the students walk away from their commitment in courses semester after semester. Mr. Burke.
Dr. Law, what you say obviously makes sense, but at the same time, you see national data which says, and even in our college, the more part-time you are, the less likely it is to succeed eventually. The full-time student will succeed at a much higher rate than the part-time student. And I guess I hate to see a system where you have to fail before we help you, and say, if you take the 5 courses and withdraw from 3, then, or withdraw from 2, you take 3 next semester. And I just, as part of your discussion here, how good a job do we do in this life plan or the college experience to say how demanding each course is up front to the student so that they know if they're taking, if they're a poor math student and they're taking a college algebra course, that it's going to be very demanding for them and that they can't anticipate taking a full load. So we kind of prevent the dropping of 2 rather than reacting to the dropping of 2. I guess that's, I just put that out there,
No,
that it seems like we need to do in the beginning, what is your workload outside? What is your obligation? And this is what each course demands as far as time. Let's face it, there are courses which are more demanding than other courses. You know, some require papers to be turned in on a frequent basis. Some, you know, are courses which, so how do we prevent that episode from happening, I guess, that, through all this, or will we find out today?
No, well, I mean, that's, if I knew exactly what to do, I could do it, okay? I mean, we are using our best officers to do that, Mr. Burke, because I think that is the issue. But without an engagement at the front to understand for the student and a learning plan that says, I often say, if you sign up for VALIC for a retirement account here, you fill out a form that says how much risk are you willing to tolerate,
Right.
okay, and what's your financial goal. You have to do it by
Right.
law. You have to do it. If you try to make an investment that's different from what you told them, I'm close to retirement, preservation of don't put me
Right.
in anything risky.
Right.
If I try to execute something risky, their internal compliance people will say, you need to double check with him.
Good.
Okay, you need to sign off.
Same philosophy.
We should
here.
have the same philosophy here. When a student tells us, I want to go to USF in business, every time their behavior does something different from that, it needs to pop up, but we currently have no mechanism for that to happen, okay? Just so that we can nurture the student. The other thing with the learning plan is you can do it any time of the year. It doesn't matter. You can't, it's not just this week we come back in January. I mean, imagine trying to get everybody registered in 4 days. It would be like me calling my financial advisor on April 14th saying, you know what, I really want to sit down and do some tax planning.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on April 14th, I mean, he doesn't want to know anything. Actually, my wife's the CPA, so she calls him, okay? But you see, my point is, I think we have to do a much better job of having students control their own learning plan, understanding what it is they can and can't do. Mr. Burke, there are still too many students who believe they've been off track for a long time, and they think the only way to get back on track is to go to school full time. They're going to catch up in one semester for 10 or 12 years of trust me, we're going to walk everybody onto it, but we cannot allow students, it's totally inefficient for us to let students wander through our curriculum, providing seats for them in ways that won't get beneficially used, and the loss of human capital is troubles me a great deal. That's the learning plan. So it's a framework that we're doing here. Excuse me, that's the life plan. The key components are we will be very much more proactive with students in the very kind of engagement that you're talking about, Mr. Burke, okay? That is, we will not let students get where they don't belong. We're going to use our best offices, and we have now a system, I think, emerging to help us do that. I think it's customer-focused. I think it's student-focused. It brings our resources to bear. So that's the framework. How do you get that done? And we're not waiting till May to get started on that. We know some of the pieces have to happen. One of the key things that we did was to create take our provosts, put them together and said, let's put together a similar project that we'll call the college experience. What happens when a student comes to us now, and how can we start making improvements in what happens? Not so much the classroom, but in the support, the registration, the counseling, advising, career counseling, and one of our major initiatives is the college experience, and Tanja would like to do that. This is the background. We'll move off this, and you'll see how some of the pieces fit together, and you'll have a chance. If you want to discuss more about this, let's do that now, but it is, again, intended to be contextual.
You want to talk about this
Yeah,
now, or you
please,
want to
yeah.
wait till you get done?
No, please go ahead, okay? Help us so that the rest of our presentation makes some sense to you.
Well, it's not immediately clear to me that restricting a student's ability to get hours in the future is going to keep them from dropping classes today. So I think I'm probably in Ken Burke's camp on this. So, but the question I had is, there's no financial hit to us if they sign up for a class, pay it, and then don't show up. Is that correct?
No, we already have their money.
Right.
Right.
So the issue that you're having is simply that it's a waste of resources, or is it that there's some kind of economic impact? It's not clear to me.
No, I think, one, it's a waste of resources, okay, because I've given them a seat that they're not going to really use. I could have used that seat to somebody who's going to complete the whole deal. So there's that
Right.
piece. I think there's a whole wasted resources. I think those people go away, and we could keep them with us. So I think the number of students would go up. They might be taking one or two fewer courses, but they won't fall off the edge. That's my theory, is we'll have more students. We've already invested all of our counseling resources in them. We've invested a lot in keeping that student with us, and we're letting them fall off. We don't even know when they're gone now. That's my economic analysis of it. But the loss of, I mean, it's really pretty inefficient for us as in our community to have people walk away from their commitment.
Oh, no, I don't disagree with that. What I was trying to get clear about is whose inefficiency is it? Is it the inefficiency of the person that paid the bill and then doesn't take advantage of the resource? Or is it or do we have a problem on our side? If we don't have a problem on our side, my thoughts about it are slightly different.
Yeah, and I think let's evolve it. Well, you know, part of what we're going to find out is these are students, they may have paid that bill to us with financial aid.
And that comes back to us?
If they can't pay that financial aid loan subsequently, we're all paying for that one, right? I mean,
as
that's
a country,
societal issue.
Right.
Increasingly, the focus is saying the institutions, if we don't, now we have to go chase that student down. We own the responsibility for the management of that loan.
Is that today? Is that the case?
Yes.
All right, so if a student defaults on a student loan, somehow we're the guarantor?
What's the final guarantor for us?
We are not the final guarantor of student loans.
Right.
If a student of ours defaults on a student loan, the federal government is the guarantor, they will pay it back. However, if a certain percentage of our students default on student loans, we can lose the ability as an institution to provide financial aid to other students.
Are we close to that benchmark?
No, we're mid-range in that. We're at 12%. Okay, you'll see that number. Okay. I'm sorry. It's very costly for us to counsel with the students, though. I mean, we have to show due diligence to chase that loan.
I got that. And so I think that was part of your thoughts about the losing the students, is that you actually have an increased cost in the beginning recruiting the student into the facility. Right. So how do you think? How do you perceive that restricting their hours is going to somehow keep them more engaged? Because I'm not following that thinking.
Here's my theory. Okay, we have. I think students mislead themselves as to what they're capable of putting in their schedule. I don't think that we're as fully engaged with. A student comes and says, "I want to sign up for 4 courses." Great. Which 4 do you want? You're going to see that they have 2/3 of them work. They have church responsibilities, family responsibilities. Increasingly, we're seeing a dependent where they have to take care of them. I don't think the whole time management, that whole how do I get my life together to get college back into my life, is being appropriately addressed. They really want to get through as fast as they can. I get that part. But they're overreaching, and we're not stopping them from taking on more than they can handle. Okay, that's my theory. Okay, when we see the patterns of how many students, what we saw a number yesterday. Which presentation it is in? How many students dropped out of at least one course? We had
48%.
Half of the students dropped at least one course. I mean, that's incredibly inefficient, and it's a harbinger of non-success. It would be like an employee who starts using up all their days off. You know you're headed for a bad experience with this employee, right? If their attendance pattern starts looking bad. This is what happens with students. When they start dropping courses, that's the beginning of the end. We'll continue to flesh it out. I mean, we're analyzing 5 years worth of trend analysis. What do we know? How does it work? But I'm beside myself with students demonstrating behaviors that will not be successful in their lives. If they go to work and they think they can take the long weekend off and then not finish the assignment, I think the whole. I'm sounding more parental than I want to be, but it bothers
well, no,
me a
I think
great deal.
I think it's good. I was just the economic impact. I don't think has any. There's no significant economic impact for us if 50% of the students pay for a course and then do not come back, except for you think that there's a higher degree of total fallout. Long-term fallout.
Okay.
Got it.
When I try to explain, if every week the Target ad, if you went there and said. I want the special, and they said, rain check. Pretty soon you wouldn't go back to Target. You know, you'd go do something else. And I think for our students, eventually they lose heart. and they drop out. Okay. And I'm trying to keep more students. I think more students will be a better economic impact because we've already spent a great deal of money for each student.
I agree with that.
That's my theory.
I got that.
All right, let's let Tanja talk about the college experience. It leads right into that. I'm sorry.
Just one, I'm listening to the economic impact. I would say that I'm happy to hear that the higher goal is what's right. And we're in the business of educating, so regardless if it's an economic impact, being concerned and making this a higher priority, I'm glad to see that that is what educators should be doing, and that's what's right.
Good. And you'll see that come through. Thank you. Okay. Vice President Williams.
Okay, we've talked about the life plan and how it will hold students accountable for their learning. Now we're going to talk about how the college is going to hold itself accountable for student learning and where we're going to make sure that we hold our end of the deal so that students are successful and move through. Nationally, colleges are working on how to get students through to graduation and completion. SPC is doing the same thing. We call ours the college experience. This encompasses every single thing that a student experiences from the time they submit their application all the way through to graduation, and the components that we are going to implement to make sure that students are successful going forward. So you see the college experience pipeline there, and you see all the different areas that we're going to work on to make sure that students can get through and be successful. But to get students through that pipeline, we need to know who our students are. We talked about what we are doing to monitor and manage how students feel and what the throughput is coming in. We're looking at data to help us get through. Let's look at our students from this fall. We served 33,680 students. First day of class this fall. That number is now grown to more than 34,000 students with different registrations that we've had, from the dynamically dated courses to short 8-week courses, etc. As you can see, the majority of our students are part-time, and we've talked about the danger of part-time students. Also, you can see here the breakdown of our students. Most of them are female. Although most of our students are female, the highest growth percentage has been in the male population. And you can see that our African American and minority groups are continuing to grow. So let's talk about some things you need to know about St. Pete College students. This is data from the SESI, which is a community college student survey of engagement report that we just received this fall. And it shows that the majority of the students who were part of this are part-time, they work full-time, they have a large dependent responsibility. Many are saying they are academically unprepared and they lack finances. At SPC, we get any student however they come and we take them where they want to go. We don't get to pick our students based on SAT, ACT, etc. They come to us, we help them achieve their dreams, we take them where they want to go.
Flip that back though, Tanja. I only want to make a case. If you looked at the profile, we're Florida State guys here, right? So if you look, this would not be the profile of freshmen at Florida State University.
Right.
In fact, it would be just they're all bright futures, so lack of finances should not be their issue. I mean, college kids always whine about money, okay? Very few are going to work full time, okay? They're academically prepared, and their father probably thinks of them as the dependent who's being cared for, okay? Yeah, right.
I guarantee you that's the case.
So the notion of who we serve is an important component to how we serve them.
Exactly.
Thank you.
So, the lack of finances, is that the lack of finances to actually pay for the hours, or is it the lack of finances to allocate the time?
It's broader.
It's broader than that.
I think it's
both. I just don't think we're that expensive. It seems like the lack of resources.
Except you run along, for them it's just another expense in the budget, okay? It's $300 for a course and $300 for textbooks, yeah. Finances is a key issue. I think our students live very close to the edge. That's my concern.
So what else would you like to know about our students? Most of them say, hey, academic advising is is important, but we're just not going to do it. We're not going to come and see an advisor. It is important, but we're not going to do it. Looking at retention data, as you can see, we need some work with our African American males as well as other students who are at risk. If you look at our first time in college students from the fall, 49.8% of them had withdrawn. From the fall 2010 year, 49.8% of them have withdrawn from at least one course. When I went to college, I thought I couldn't withdraw from a class, so you stuck in there and you stayed and made it happen. 57% of our students said career services are important, but 54% say they rarely go in and see anybody to get the help. If a student does not know where they're going and why they're here, they're certainly not going to succeed. This is information that the provost and other leaders have learned as we are starting to work harder to look at research of our own students, to look at data. Look at the number of students who were in at least one developmental course this semester, 6,457 of our 34,000 students were enrolled in at least one developmental course. And so those are students that are at SPC that we welcome and we work hard to help them
succeed. And the developmental
succeed.
courses, what?
These are courses that are high school level English, reading, writing, and math to kind of help bring them
remedial
up to the college level.
Okay.
Let's take something that's good. Tim, we use 3 different remedial, developmental. In Florida, we call it college prep at times too. Okay, all 3 are used interchangeably. But these are students who test when they come to us and they are not ready for college level math, English, or reading.
And something
It's a
else.
huge part of what we do.
Yeah, I think that's fairly beneficial. So the other question I had was, earlier you had mentioned about students dropping out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And is there a difference between dropping out? I mean, do they get an F when they drop, or do they have a period of time they can drop and not have any adverse grade?
They have a period of time that they can drop up to the 60% point of the semester. Once we hit 60%, then they earn a WF if they have not withdrawn and they're not actively participating in class.
And so is your dropout rate substantially less after the 60%, or is it about the same all the way across?
Well, I know that our withdrawal rate for this fall has decreased. Our students are staying. I have not seen the data on the WF on the 60% at this point.
Some of it is really just the Bureau. I don't know the answer to your question today,
Well,
but
I was wondering if that
where
was
it
a deterrent.
occurs, okay? And some of those are fairly arcane. The key point, though, that you're on was it's worth making. A student can withdraw without damaging their grade point average. So if we use grade point average as a tracking indicator for how well a student is doing, we're going to miss some. They're dropping a handful of classes, staying in the 2 where they're getting Bs. They look like a 3.0 student, but their pattern is going to cause them to drop out. We know that happens. So we're trying to develop the metrics that say, you watch their behaviors as well as their academic performance and intervene sooner rather than later. Don't wait. See if we can't develop an intervention strategy.
Yeah, so that the question I had then is, are we incenting students to drop prior to the 60% because there's no adverse effect on their GPA? So you would assume after the 60% there's very little dropout, or?
I don't know. Your students aren't quite as purposeful as that would imply.
I don't know. You might be surprised.
Oh, well, no, many are. I just said, I'm sure after the date, many argue, I really want a W rather than WF, that kind of thing.
Okay.
I suspect we do a lot of that dialogue on campus.
I'm curious, Patrick, would you know some of the answers here, at least best guesstimates? I mean, this is part of your area, I
I
guess.
was just sharing with Dr. Coraggio, the new BI tool is going to has a report that's going to show us that. We can show that to you probably in January. Student success rates, it's got the W and WF percentages.
But do you have any idea what it is currently, just to?
Far more W's than WFs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that would
70%?
Students doing.
Any idea?
Not 70% of our students.
No,
but
70% of people will withdraw before the 60%, or I just threw that number out there. Any idea what the percentage?
It's significantly higher W's than WFs.
Could it be like 90 to 95 to 5? Is it that kind of, or do you think it's more?
Let's go find out.
Yeah,
We'll go find out. We'll get you the answer before that.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Is 60%
I see Lee typing
the norm in
furiously.
higher ed? 60% of the class? Is that a norm? You look at other colleges?
Pretty much. I think the other thing that Dr. Law mentioned was using 2 different metrics for student success, one being the cumulative GPA. but the other also being course completion. The federal government looks at the number of courses you complete. You can have a 3.0, but if you don't complete 67% of your coursework, you could lose your 8. So we're falling right in line with what the federal, and that's now, that's not futuristic.
I've been associated with institutions that let students withdraw right up until the last day without
Is there
penalty.
a trend at all?
I don't know.
I mean, my
Mine's
daughter had to do
anecdotal.
it within 2 weeks.
That would make a lot of sense to me if you only had 2
Yeah,
weeks.
universities
And that
tend
was
to
at
be
FSU.
front-end. In fact,
Really?
Yeah.
You have to do, you have 2 weeks.
we've been
First 2
more
weeks.
laissez-faire, and it hadn't produced the benefits we want, I think.
Okay.
I think we're sending a confusing signal that it's okay to withdraw.
That would be my
Right.
gut
Yeah.
feeling, is that you're sending a message as,
Yeah.
you don't want them to drop out, but go ahead.
Yeah,
You can go
and
through
we'll make it easy.
Pretty much the whole class
Yeah.
before you make that decision.
Right.
Jesse.
And then,
And for fall, last fall, we can do this fall because we haven't got
Still
grades.
in.
Yeah, we still
It's
have
gonna be
a
the same.
week or so. It looks like we have about twice as many W's as we do WFs. We had 8,776 W's, 4,179 WFs.
66%.
2 to 1, 12,000 course withdrawals, though.
That's 70%.
That's a lot of activity. All right, keep rolling, Tanja, okay?
Okay, all right.
All right.
So
This is
our
great.
next-
No, this is what we do. I mean, this.
So our next step is to enhance the college experience for our students so that they will have the breadcrumbs they need to get across the stage and finish on time and within a reasonable amount of time. So the provosts have worked with district staff and faculty, students, a lot of folks have been involved in looking at 5 areas we would like to start our pursuit of improving the college experience. One being creating a clear process for those students from the time they submit their app until they're enrolled and sitting in the class. That is a serious focus point for us at this point, to make sure they know what to do, when to do, how to do, where to go, and so forth. So we're working on that right now. Second is creating that individualized student learning plan. And the purpose of that plan is to help students know where they're going, what they're going to do, and actually help them understand, where am I with graduation? How far am I from completing? How am I doing in the coursework? In that learning plan, eventually we're going to have an early alert system that shares with students from the faculty. Here's how Tanja's doing in class. Here are the behaviors that are working well. She's earning this grade. Yes, sir.
On the number 2, how are we requiring this to be done? Well, every student must have a individualized, and what's the mechanics to make that happen?
Well, what we'd like to do right now is start with first time in college, our brand new students, because they're coming through orientation. Well, this is the
This is the
first
mock-up of the
phase.
learning plan. So that most times you, as
Students
you
will be
see,
able from the
everything we
learning-
know about a student is in one place.
It's going to be in one place. They're going to get all of their information. They're coming to this hub. This is where they're going to come to get that. They'll be able to plan their courses for semesters out. They'll be able to register from their planner. They'll be able to see their early alert. Eventually, we'll even have an automated graduation check up here to say, Tanja, you're 60% there. Way to go. To let me know, here's where I am. We'll also have some career things where they can have portfolios and other things. This is going to be the hot spot for students and where they'll go to
Which
get
screen
their
is
help.
this one? This is
the
This is
my planner.
Yeah.
Right.
So you've got, again, just go, walk across the tabs if you would, Doug, so we can get a sense of what's underneath
Okay.
these things. Okay.
This is the My Status one. That's your front page that just tells you kind of where you are in pretty much all aspects of a very quick and an easy way. Then
So,
there's
can I ask you a question about that? So I'm a new student, I go on, does it tell me what courses I need to take in order? So somehow I've identified what it is I want to accomplish with my education up front, right?
Where's that part? Where is that?
Yeah, I'd
part?
like to see that.
Well, this is work in progress.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Because I didn't
we're
see that
close.
in the backup material. Where did the person originally go and say, I want to be
And orientation.
this?
That's,
That's-
yes.
Or a face-to-face meeting with counsel. That's the whole
Right.
plan.
Okay.
It's a quality initial engagement. Now we have a tool that
Okay.
both parties can access and guides us. If you want to change your plan, you change it.
Okay, so I'm 18, I sit down with a guidance counselor, they help start my status, and they get my website filled out. Is that correct?
Right, you've got it exactly right.
All right, I like that.
Yeah.
And we're starting with first time in college students. These students are coming to the new student orientation. they're getting a good feel of this. And then our students who tested in the 2 or more developmental courses, they will get a real robust look at this in the SLS courses, so they can sit down and really get that rolling.
It's in development now. We expect it to be finished late spring, where we can start pilot testing and rolling it out to students. So we'll do some in summer. We'll start this time next year, though. We suspect we're going to be in full production on this. 33,000. You need to be a little careful about mandating everybody on board on day one. Okay. So,
On your cohort information,
Yeah.
which you've given to the board before, one of the most significant failure rates are the folks who don't know why they're here. They're just taking courses.
Right.
I assume this will see that number who are wandering through here diminish tremendously.
Or two things. One, they can, yes, they'll have a better, they will indicate something. Two, if they say, I don't know, we know who they are. We can follow up in the first 2 weeks to say, how you doing?
Okay,
That's the key. We can pull information out of this.
We can revisit them. And
that's much more important than reporting to you in January, here's how many students dropped out.
Our goal for first time in, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. You might have been answering my question.
Our goal for our first time in college students is that by the second semester enrollment, they will have declared a major. We will seek them, we will work with them to make sure that they have declared a major, because until they declare a major, this is not going to be helpful to them, because this is based upon the student plan. And if they don't have the plan, and this is what's happening, you don't have a plan, then you can't do anything. You don't know where you're going. So that's what the Career Services team is working on, is making sure that those 6,000 and so students that don't have a plan, they'll have a plan. Because we're seeking them, we're bringing them in, calling them to make sure that they get that identified.
So out of the 33,000, how many are actually first-time students that would require someone to sit down with them?
What did we have?
What was the
About
number?
10%?
About 10%.
About 10% first time.
10%, so 4,000, right, or 3,500. So, and how many people do you have, what kind of resources do you have to be able to sit down with 3,500 people?
Not enough is the answer, but let me get you good numbers. I don't have that at the tip of my tongue. In fact, we're reviewing that as we speak because we're going to have a new tool. Do we need more? How do we make this work? This has been an area that has not been fully funded in times past. This is where some of the cuts occurred in the student support areas.
Well, this would be a good place to invest if you were looking to increase. Yeah, that's so just realistically, if we had I would assume you're going to spend a half an hour per student. Is it reasonable to expect that a half an hour is right? So you only can see 16 a day. So
what we do with this is we see them in groups as well. In the new student orientation, they're sitting at a computer, so that they can start working on their plan and use the planner themselves. And so they're able to get a lot of that right there in a group setting.
Here's our dilemma all the time. Some students need a lot of help. Some students, there are some who start clicking and pointing as soon as they fire it up, and they'll figure it out and they'll go. We want to intercept that student. We currently do what you're saying. Every student needs a half hour, so we line them up half hour to clip, and we can't get to the end of the line. That's the problem. We need a tool that lets them bring some energy to it, so we're not doing all the work with them.
Okay, so then I misunderstood you. When my status gets started up, you're not going to be sitting in front of someone. You'll be in a group, being part of a group discussion.
That would be a more
An
likely
orientation, so you have a
scenario.
mandatory orientation.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. So we now have, though, a pretty robust tool to help do this. This will, as soon as you tell us I want USF business, we'll tell you what you need to graduate. We'll populate it with the courses that you're going to need to take while you're with us to get to that degree. You'll know how, and it'll tell you you've done these, you still have these to do. It links out to your schedule. You can then link it out right out to your scheduler. Notice the efficiency that happens here, okay? And as soon as somebody steps in a direction that's not what they told us, we should get a report that says, Bill, you can take that, intro to something that's different, but it's not going to transfer. So you're going to use $300 and your financial aid for something that won't meet a graduation requirement. That's a better discussion before it happens than at the point of graduation. Okay. So you see, we're pretty proactive on this. We got a lot invested in going forward in this. This is the main thrust that we're working on, but there's a huge payback. Good. I don't want to get that. We got other things, but you see our college experience working on these kinds of things. Pretty good stuff. But by the way, we're the programming resources we are investing as we find monies that we can save. Contract programming is what we've used to accelerate some of this. So that's.
And how far are you ready? When will this launch? Will it be next year?
No, I think we're
Yeah, February, January, February.
We're a lot closer than we think. Everybody's just always a little nervous with saying a date out loud because it's got to work when we launch. And if you look at all the links, I mean, we've got to get the payment piece. You see what happens. It's very complex. But it's a huge benefit for students. All they have to know is how to find their plan, and everything is there. What they owe, when they owe it, what they've succeeded at, their records, their records with who they've advised with.
I don't know if this is the right time to keep bringing this up, but when you look across the various categories of students you have, by age, by gender, right? Is there one group that has a larger amount of withdrawals? I mean, is it the 18 and 19-year-olds that withdraw more, or is it the 30-year-olds that withdraw more?
Jesse, what do you think?
A lot of times it's not the younger students just because they don't have enough time in the system in order to accumulate those W's over time. So higher percentages seem to be a lot kind of in the mid-range of students.
What
is mid-range? 21?
21 to 25. It seems like we don't get as much with the older students because they've been here longer and they've had time to offset those W's. But it's kind of that center range that we seem to have the highest percentage.
Baccalaureate students are noticeably lower because they're all career focused. I mean, they know exactly what they're doing, exactly how they're going to get there. The students in the online bachelor's nursing program are pretty highly motivated. They're focused, so they tend to have a little different pattern. So.
But you don't actually have metrics broken out by who has the higher withdrawals?
No, but we will. Okay. Stick with us. But we're working on that as we speak, okay? Trying to distill, too often we talk about the average, and we really need to get the edges. We need to know which group is the target group.
It may be totally spread around and be, just the same across all the, I doubt it.
We just don't know.
Yeah.
We just don't know. All right, Tanja, let's jump back. You see that, I think the career piece is the other piece, though.
Well, the career piece right now, Dr. Oliver is leading that with his team. And as I mentioned, the immediate goal right now is to capture students within that second semester to make sure that they have identified a career choice so that we do not have the high numbers that we have right now of undeclared majors and students in those areas. And then to build a robust career service component that will also be a part of the learning plan.
Andrew is looking to intervene here to handle the process a little bit. Okay.
Is that web-based?
The
software is web-based?
It's our own development, PeopleSoft. But it's web-based.
Nice. Yeah. Web-based.
Are you watching this guy behind you?
I've seen him do it.
That's pretty impressive.
The business guys love it.
It looks to me like he has you beating somebody up, but I can't really tell from here.
That's me getting beat up.
Oh, is that
that's a standard one from board meetings.
Tanja, I do want to really compliment that early alert. I read the memo of your committee on that, and I just appreciate the aggressiveness of implementing that. And obviously, I mean, I think it's a very aggressive timetable y'all are trying to do that and set the standards, but thank you. That's wonderful to see something, a concept, turning into action quickly.
May I just want to offer a couple of comments, too, as a parent. I do this periodically, and I apologize, but that's probably some of the rare times that I can bring personal experience to this discussion. As most of you know, I have 4. One of them never needed any help. The other 3, this stuff is golden, absolutely golden, because they need to know this track that they're on and how they're going to get there. And I just think it's a sad day, but sometimes they just need to be taken by the hand and shown the path. And when they sign up for a class that's not in the degree plan, and they're traveling down that road and nobody taps them on the shoulder and says, back up, stop. I just think it's this is the most exciting part of the future, I feel, of SPC. Looking through all this stuff that has been sent to us, I've tried to read through all of it. I'm more excited about this than any of it, only because I've lived the disasters as a parent, and I've written the checks, and we've paid for in the GPA for the WFs because they didn't drop in time, and it's just like it's a disaster. And furthermore, I love the idea of restricting the amount of classes. It's almost like putting your kid on probation. You know what? Your kid's screwing up. Okay, you know what? You're not going out on weekends anymore. And I think it's great. So my editorial, apologize.
We'll work
So,
through.
Chairman, how can Jonathan best capture your excitement?
Insert one of my kids into the one that's getting the whipping up there.
You're talking about your kids or my kids?
All of our kids. I mean,
yeah, right.
Anybody that says they haven't been there, I don't know.
Very good.
I'd be interested, Tim, with 6. How old is your oldest?
Isn't at St.
21. She's here at St. Pete.
Yeah.
What was interesting is you start talking about withdrawing classes. Well, I was wondering, does she have any? And why would, if she does, and I wasn't told, I would like as a parent to make sure we're including the parents in the conversation.
Violation of federal law.
Yeah, but
Welcome to the
I'm sure there's some type of waiver.
She can waive it. That's right. She
Yeah,
can.
that would be part of the orientation.
Get her to sign
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Your best bet is to have her think we're watching her without doing that, okay? And then you get both
She may
results.
not have, but I'd like to know.
Do your homework, Tim.
Good, good.
So we have heard our first 2 PowerPoint presentations,
we're
one on life
way
plan, one on
behind.
college experience. We are armed and ready to identify our 18-month strategic focus areas and/or metrics. And what you see in front of us, Mr. Fine, Mr. North, you've not yet experienced this, but this is our brainstorming software. We capture ideas in real time. It's dynamic in the sense that we generally have more than one team at work, and you can see ideas flowing in from all the teams, so you can continually build and springboard on other teams' ideas. So for example, if the Pinellas County Commissioners were participating with us right now, they could be generating ideas in real time to complement yours. So it's a great tool. What we'd like to do is first begin by brainstorming, and we have about 12 minutes if we want to stick to our time frame. No pressure. 12 minutes to identify the strategic priorities and metrics over the next 18 months in the life plan and college experience area. And then before 9:50, we'd like to really prioritize our top 3. So, yeah, begin, if you would, just kind of brainstorming. What are the strategic focus areas on both of these, in both of these areas?
I think we would need to take a real hard look at the budget to see that we have the amount of resources put into the area of student support and all the things that we're talking about. Wouldn't it be great if we had a student support representative with their finger on the pulse of when a student did sign up for the wrong class, or when a student was approaching that 60% timeline in their drop period, and just to check in and say, are you aware that if you don't drop it by X, you're in trouble? But we need to have the personnel sitting at the keyboards, and we need to make sure that we have the funding allocated to that.
I would like to even see something prior to that. I would like to understand what the metrics are for, whether or not we can support the fact that when students leave or withdraw, that they actually do cost us money.
Okay.
So I'd like to know up front, for instance, what does an hour really cost for us to provide it? What are we getting in revenue from both, from funding sources and from the students? And then I'd like to, if there is any data on it whatsoever, I'm not sure that there is, but if there's tracking data that would allow you to see which students on which tracks actually perform economically the best.
Okay.
I understand what you're saying. I just want to understand how it's all paid for.
Yeah, okay.
So, did that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think,
Yeah.
in fact, to be
Not
perfectly
that you want
honest,
to go by it. I just want to. I would like to know it up front.
I
So.
think we're looking to show off that we can actually do that now. We have put the business intelligence system in. We can cut everything every way, and I think we can get answers to those pretty quickly now. Okay.
Okay.
And then look at them differently. I mean, that's the point.
Well, that would that would be good. And then
Yeah.
if and then by you have I assume you have a number of categories of how which students pop into which categories. So.
Okay.
Understanding if there's any cost differences in providing hours to them, or if there's any, I don't know if there's recruiting costs that go into it.
Good.
So there might be upfront costs that need to be amortized over the length of stay, and we might be assuming somebody stays 2 years when they only stay 2 months. I don't know.
Okay, we've had that discussion, and I'm anxious to move along that trail too. Okay, so Ken.
On this section, this is kind of difficult I think for us because I agree with you, Terry. We're here to listen to what the professionals are telling us, to question it some, so we have a good understanding. But it's basically support what y'all have set up. I don't think it's. I as a board member, don't have a separate goal than what's been enunciated by Tanja through all these. So I'm not sure where you
just do as feedback
with.
then. I just want to make sure that we invest your time, and then when we come back to you, we have aligned.
So
okay.
We're on the student success agenda.
Okay.
We owe it to our students, and I'm just tremendously excited by everything that's been presented here. Like Terry said, this is, and we just want to make sure our budget is aligned with these programs and making them happen. And I think that, like you point out, do we have the resources like in academic counseling to have 3,800 students have a meeting with the learning plan? But it's I think we owe it to our students to if they're going to come here to offer them success. So,
Dr. Williams, did I see in the literature that I was reading that the initial rollout of the
learning plan
was for 2 semesters?
The initial rollout, actually the very first piece of the learning plan is already out there, but the more robust is going to be ready for next fall.
And projected out how long?
What do you mean?
When they're going on there and they're signing up and they're identifying the courses that they need. Did I read that it was just for 2 semesters?
Oh, no.
Okay.
We're looking at through to completion.
All the way.
Yeah, all the way.
Well, based upon what
All
I've
right.
heard, are there any other
I think let's
strategic
keep going. We'll save the time.
I'm also interested in benchmarking with such a high drop rate. Is there any data of other similar colleges?
We shall pull that for
just
you.
to see what their drop rates are and withdrawal dates and things. I always like to steal from the best.
That's not uniform through the state of Florida, the withdrawal date?
No. Oh, absolutely not.
So that's a individual college
Yes,
decision?
absolutely.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Absolutely.
I would just like to see if that changes and if that's available.
Yeah, no, what we ought to do is pick some target colleges that are more like us. Some are really small and some are not very much like us at all. But find 4 or 5.
Period of time.
Yes.
Okay. Drop rates
How'd you do in
go.
Tallahassee? Do you know?
We had a very similar thing. We had a date, I forget exactly where it was, whether it was 60%, and you had to drop by that day.
Okay.
It was I fussed. It was the craziest thing. You had to see an advisor to drop before that date, but then they had an amnesty, so the day or 2 before that date, you could do it on your own. Okay. So I kept saying, well, how do you get anyone to go see an advisor? If you don't have to go in and tell lies and beg and plead for the sign-off. We send the wrong signal.
My gut feeling is that if I'm a student and I'm faced with getting an F as opposed to, I think I'd stick it out. So I think, but I'm not sure.
Yeah,
so, but that's my gut feeling. So I don't know.
I have a funny feeling that my own theory is students get a little overextended. And the first faculty member who gives a big exam on a Monday, that's the course the student drops.
Well, that's been this policy of the 60% hasn't changed since I was a student here back in the 70s. And basically, the theory was that back then is you get your midterm, and that way you know whether you're doing well, or if you're not doing well, you get the heck out of there.
There's some other pieces.
So
I think the veterans require us to monitor. If I'm not mistaken, the veterans require us to monitor for some of their aid. We do have some other bureaucratic kinds of and fiduciary responsibilities on that. Thank you. Your input has been totally valuable for us. We're going to keep charging ahead. This is our major student focus, and I think it provides the most benefit to us.
I just have one more question. Again, on the materials that we received, one of the bullets on the college experience. The last one was expanding and strengthening our out-of-class instructional support commitment. Can you just give me like 2 minutes on that?
Sure.
Would this be internships?
It's more likely, what we're really talking about there is the learning centers on campus where students can get help that is directly tied to what they're getting in class. So Dr. Joe Leopold is heading that up. It's the downstream version of library help, but now they're learning centers. So we do it for math, we do it for English. Now we're trying to say we can do this in a variety of other areas as well, okay? So learning centers are where students can get help in virtually every course outside of class. Big commitment.
Tutoring center?
Tutoring center would be another way of thinking of that, yes.
I know you mentioned orientation in here someplace, and I was trying to find it. Is that something where, did we decide, are we going to make that a mandatory orientation?
Oh, yes, yeah. Tanja, last year we put it, anyone who had 2 developmental needs had to be at orientation, and we learned a lot about how it didn't work just right. But we'll expand it this year. If I knew what the expansion will be. We did 1,800 students last year?
No, we did more than 18.
Anyway, it's a bunch, a couple thousand.
Is there, for like the January semester, when's the orientation taking place for that?
They're taking place now for the students who are starting in January. Every campus has different dates, times. There's a series of them going on at each campus, and the student can sign up for which one they'd like to come and take.
What do they see if they don't see the program that you're getting ready to launch at a mandatory orientation?
They learn a lot about getting started in college, where the resources are, how to register, who's who on campus, how to be successful in school. They get to meet other students who are a part of the orientation as well, who helps them learn how to use
pretty unfocused.
It's pretty good on just the information they need just in time to get ready for classes.
It's not a sense of planning your future. It's really how to get started, and that's a big difference.
Right,
You
so
gotta
the
do
planning
both.
your future piece is what you're going to implement
Yeah,
with
exactly.
the web
Exactly,
website.
yeah. Okay, good enough. I think we can move to the next area. Financial aid. This one is I'm glad we changed the order. This one you will see the benefit. We're going to sound like a broken record, but trust me, we are.
Good morning again. I'd like to introduce myself again. Todd Smith, Director of Financial Services here at St. Petersburg College. And Captain Fine and Mr. North, I'd like to welcome you all to the board. Hopefully, I can help you get a better understanding of financial aid and how it works at St. Petersburg College. I'm going to talk to you about financial aid by the numbers. Specifically, we're going to talk about the actual demand of services that have been put on our department. We're going to talk about the production that we've been able to produce. We're going to look at satisfactory academic progress. And we're going to also look at loan debt that all of us have to be concerned about. The first thing I think you definitely have to understand specifically as we talk about the students that we're serving here, Dr. Williams already alluded to it, we have to understand the student that we're working with. Our average student, or the typical student that we work with on a day-to-day basis, is not the traditional student that are coming right out of high school and going right into college. Our typical student is 28 years of age, 28 years old, and they're deep in. We've already seen they're stressed financially. Some of them already working full time. So please keep that in mind as we talk about these numbers as it relates to satisfied academic progress and student loan debt. The other thing that I think is you definitely need to understand is a large portion or a large population of our students depend heavily on financial aid. About 60 to 70% of our students receive some form of financial aid here at St. Petersburg College. The thing that you need to see from this graph here, basically the blue bar graph basically designates the workload or the demand on our services. And as you can see, it continues to be going up each year. The red designates the production that we've been able to do. When we look at metrics and measurables, these are actually the number of students that we've taken place and we've done so far this year. You can see we've already equaled and just about surpassed what we've done all of last year so far this fall.
Before you go, I want to ask a question on the screen. What is the difference between the applicants and awarded? Are you saying that
applicants are the number of people that have applied for financial aid, awarded are the number of students that are actually receiving financial aid?
So what is the is there a specific reason why you don't have more of your applicants being awarded financial aid? Is it just the inability to get to them?
They may not be eligible, they may not have enrolled, because we get applications for students that decide not to come to financial aid as well. But we do have to at some point in time process or look at that application and see if they're eligible for anything. So there's a host of different reasons. It could be that they're not enrolled in enough credit hours, or they're not enrolled at all, or as I said before, they may not be eligible for anything.
So they'll apply with financial aid, even if they're not going to be a student here, so they may have elected to go to a university?
Right. Yeah, when they do the free application for federal student aid, they can have up to 10 choices
I
of
didn't
the
realize
colleges
that
they're going
in
to.
this figure.
Anytime they list St. Petersburg College, we get that data,
Okay.
whether they decide to come here or not.
So you had 35,000 pieces of paper you had to look at, but only 23,000?
Well, not necessarily the paper now. We do it systematically.
I'm sorry.
Your point is well taken,
but
right,
yeah,
35,000
we definitely have to
files.
look at those applications.
Okay.
Those are individual applications, yes. Now let's look at the production from dollar cents. You can see here again, already this year, so far this fall, we've exceeded the total dollars that we awarded all of last year. We awarded about $168 million last year. We've already awarded up to the fall $177 million. Now you do need to understand this. Our awards, when we award for the fall, we award for the fall and the spring. Okay, so we are awarding for the year up front. Now the numbers that this does not represent are the students that are going to be coming for the first time in the spring, and then those awards that we will make in the summer. So that number will grow as we move on.
Okay, on this slide, is the blue Pell?
The blue is Pell Grant, SCOG, SIG. There's several grants that we have.
And the green with the loan, is that what we award, but not necessarily is that what they take?
That's what we award, exactly. This is awarded, not what necessarily what they take. That's correct, yeah.
I'll show you about.
Now, the one thing I just want to talk about as it relates to satisfactory academic progress, and there's some things that you all do need to understand. There are some academic requirements in order for students to qualify for aid and continue to receive aid. There are 3 criteria. There's a minimal GPA requirement, there's a minimum completion ratio requirement, and there's also a maximum time frame requirement. The minimum GPA requirement we're all familiar with, and we would assume the student has to maintain a minimum GPA to continue to get aid.
Which is what?
Well, it's a graduated rate. From 1 to 15 credit hours is a 1.5. From 16 to 29 is 1.75.
Yeah,
From
this year.
30 or more
turned
is
up the-
2.0 or better. There's also a minimum completion rate. There is a minimum completion rate, a minimum percentage of all the courses that are being attempted throughout a specific term that the student should be completing in order to get them to the point of meeting what we call maximum time frame, which is the 3rd criteria. Federal regulations state that students need to complete their program before attempting in excess of 150% of the credit hours that are required for the degree program. And let me break it down this way. If you're in an aid program, it requires you to complete 60 credit hours to get that degree. You have to graduate and get that degree before you reach 90 credit hours, 90 attempted credit hours, before your financial aid will be cut off.
Okay. You talk a little fast for me, so let me
Okay.
There's a couple of things that came through that I wanted to ask you. So the first thing is financial aid is awarded on their intent to attend a class. So so you have students who do you have students who would be looking at this a money-making venture? In other words, they sign up for class, withdraw, and keep the money?
Well, again, I'll go back again to understanding the student that we're dealing with. Yes, we do have many students because they are economically challenged that are looking at financial aid as another income stream. However, I must say this, there is a small percentage of students that are doing that, but we do have students that are looking at financial aid.
A student could do that.
Yes,
exactly.
So how would they do that? I would assume the financial aid goes to pay to the class, so we would receive the money. It does not.
Yes, well,
Depends which type.
they owe us, they have to go to class, they have to register, and then we get our piece before we release to them, okay? But again, if it's a loan, they generate a net need, which includes some living expenses, so they get cash in their hand with our release. And we do that 10 days into the semester or a week into the semester. I mean, we make sure a student is in class, has registered, has gone to class, that sort of stuff.
And that's in the form of a book advance. So
But
we
if it's-
definitely make sure they're able to get what they need to get the classes started. We don't release funds until 4 weeks into the session, but again, it can be used in the form that you just mentioned.
One of the things we do in financial aid to prevent some of that is a student has to begin attendance in the course. So a student attendance is taken the first 2 weeks of class. And if a student does not attend the first 2 weeks, we reduce their aid based on the courses that they failed to begin attendance in. And that has cut drastically down on students who just register for courses and expect money. That's why we don't disperse until the 4th week, because we look at the first 2 weeks of enrollment to make sure they began attending before we release any funds to them.
Is that on loan or Pell?
That's all financial aid. We
All
don't
financial aid?
financial aid until the 4th week of classes. So they don't get any Pell money, any loan money until we've confirmed that they've started enrollment in their courses.
But Pell's around 5,000 a year, isn't it?
Yeah, $27.75 a term if they're full-time. If they're
It's
less
the
than full-time,
maximum.
they prorate based on that.
So their credit hours will be below that 5,000, probably even with their books. So there's living expense built into Pell. Is that correct? Am I
Correct,
wrong
yes.
there?
Federal regulations require us to provide a student more than just tuition and fee costs. They have to have a housing, meals, transportation, and other miscellaneous
I think that's
expenses as
kinda
part of
good,
our
yeah.
cost of attendance.
You brought something else up that's interesting. So you do have a number of withdrawals that you have not provided financial aid for, so that we don't get paid. So there are, within the first 4 weeks, there's some group of people that we've expended resources and money on that we're not getting reimbursed for. Is that correct?
In fact, yes, sir. And in fact, we put some downward pressure on that. In the past, if you had been in the process, we kicked you into the semester. We would assume you were going to be there. Now we said we clear all the financial aid. If you're not up to date before the semester starts, we're not giving you that seat. You can make other arrangements for payment. We have short-term loan and that sort of stuff. But we had a number of students who really were never going to get in those seats, and we now have cleaned up that process again, trying to make sure every seat that we have is going to have somebody in it.
Just so I understand again, the loan or the Pell, that's all coming to the college, and we're dispersing it to the student?
Yeah, the funds, we draw down the funds, the funds come directly to the institution, and then we take out whatever costs, we have to pay for. As far as tuition is concerned, we provide quick advances, and then once all that is taken care of, we give them the balance of what's left over. But yeah, it has to come to the
Is
institution.
it on a monthly
first.
basis that it gets distributed to the
It's by
student?
semester, but also too, again, it's ongoing throughout the semester. Depends. There are some students who will start enrollment who haven't even applied for financial aid yet. So we can continue to process and disperse and do those types of things all throughout the semester. But typically, we do it 4 weeks into every semester start.
Okay, just as an example, was it 2,700 the figure you used?
Yes,
Per-
27.75.
per semester. Their tuition and books comes to $1,000, let's say. Probably more, but let's say $1,000. So that means that after 4 weeks, we cut a check for $1,700 to that student?
Yes, once all their fees are paid for, once tuition is taken care of, once we take into account what we provided to them in the form of a book line of credit, if they've used it, we take that out, and whatever's left over goes to them.
Okay. I didn't know that's how it worked.
The other thing
It's a shift. Remember, we cut the banks out of
Right.
the equation 2 years ago, 3 years ago. They used to get that money through banks, and
With the loan part,
The loan
right.
part, right? Yeah.
Well, that's it. It all goes into one pot.
For
It
us.
was a grant, it was a loan, right?
Yeah.
It was a grant, it was a loan, it was a scholarship. We put it into the financial aid bucket, and we use that bucket to take care of the fees that are owing, and whatever's left over, we provide to the student.
I had another question, I'm sorry. You had said something about we provide a line of credit, and then we don't satisfy that line of credit until the financial aid package actually comes through?
No, we don't provide it until they have a financial aid package. You can't get a line of credit unless we know that you have.
The line of credit's in the bookstore.
Just in the bookstore?
Bookstore, right.
Right, but do you have a significant number of withdrawals where you've actually paid for them to get books or whatever else at the bookstore?
We have some, but like you said before, we have things that we have in place to capture them before money gets dispersed. That's why we wait 4 weeks before we actually put everything into their hands.
But a student could get a book.
It's possible, yes.
They're mostly going to, right? I mean,
Yeah,
we
that's why
want
we give them the
book
line of
before-
credit. We want them to have the
Right.
books,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's.
But again, that's for the book, so that's the only place that they can use it.
All right, I want to, there's 2 or 3 key pieces here. You got to have a plan, you got to have academic success, and you have to make progress. Sound like a learning plan support to me.
The other thing too, again, there have been some major regulatory policy changes. One of the things that we've instituted and implemented this year, which is going to be very good, we've gone from evaluating and calculating satisfactory academic progress once a year at the end of the year to doing it at the end of every term. What that does is it helps
Go
us
to the
put-
slide that has those numbers on it, okay? Let's, here.
We do our evaluations, and we're going to be doing them at the end of every term, starting the end of the fall term. What that does is it provides an early alert for our students to get an understanding that, hey, you are in jeopardy of potentially losing your aid. If you look at everything we've done coming into the fall, 23,000 of our students are in good standing, 2,900 on financial aid warning, 2,700 are on probation, and 940 students have ceased to receive financial aid based on the fact that they did not maintain SAP requirements. Now, I speak a little bit more in detail in regards to warning and probation. Warning are those students who have failed to maintain minimal SAP requirements for the very first time. When they fail to do it for the very first time, we do not take their aid away. We provide a warning to let them know, hey, you are in jeopardy of losing your financial aid. So we extend them one more semester to get themselves in good standing or back in good standing. If they don't do it, then they will be suspended. Probation are the students that have lost their aid. In other words, they went at least 2 consecutive sessions without maintaining minimum SAT requirements, so we suspended their aid. However, due to extenuating circumstances that they were able to document and prove to us, we reinstated their aid for one more term. And we also assigned them an academic plan. That academic plan is pretty stringent. That's one of the new things that we've also implemented in financial aid to make sure that the students are doing what they need to do and they're only receiving financial aid for the courses that are required for their degree program. So they're not just taking any and everything. So very important to understand that, again, roughly almost 6,000 students right now are in jeopardy of losing their financial aid for the spring term. That means future dollars that may be going away, future enrollment. The other thing that it means is it's going to be increased workload on our staff because those are potential appeals that we are going to have to look at and evaluate before the spring term.
Hang on.
This is one where I sent a question yesterday on. Do we have any figures which show us how we're comparing with other colleges?
You basically
in our,
you would not be comparing apples to apples. Here's the reason why. We all have to have those three things I told you. We have to have minimum requirements, we have to have completion ratio in place, we have to have a maximum time frame in place. But here's where you have a difference. Every institution does not have the same GPA requirement. Every institution does not have the same completion ratio that they require for their students. And every institution may or may not be evaluating their satisfied academic progress at the end of every term. Some would do it once a year. Some would do it every term. Some will allow an appeal. There are some institutions that will not allow an appeal.
I'm sorry. I thought the standards of academic progress. I thought that was a federal mandate to do it every semester.
What's a federal mandate is what you have to have in place. Again, you have to have something in place that says there's a minimum GPA requirement. You have to have something in place that has a completion.
So it doesn't say what that minimum is.
The only thing that it does say is this: as far as maximum time frame is concerned, your students can no longer receive financial aid once they attempt in excess of 150% of the credit hours that are required for your degree program. And number two, your completion ratio percentage that you require your students to maintain must guarantee that they're going to complete their program before exceeding the 150% mark.
I guess as our board's policy, it's very difficult to look at these figures, and I see it as basically an approximately 20% default rate, or not in good standing.
And I'm not following your thinking.
Are we
on that? Yeah, not yours. I was wondering his. Right?
Is that good? Is that bad?
It's all, the reason we're
it doesn't sound too good, but I don't know it compared to anyone else.
No, the reason that we're doing this is because the new standards are washing over us, and we're trying to keep up with what does it mean for us. Okay, so we've got every semester we have to evaluate the students on GPA, those sorts of things. Once again, we had no early warning system. A lot of these students, we're worried that after we counseled with them, they picked courses that weren't on the plan. And we don't have a mechanism for going in behind to say, I'm sorry, Bill, that course should not have been in your plan. We didn't agree to that one when we counseled with you. We sit with them and agree what we're going to do, but they can go change that. There's no lockdown on that. So we're worried about that. The other part, though, is the communication of where you are. I mean, I will tell you, I don't think students understand how close to the edge they are if they drop out of a course. You know, are they meeting the standards of progress for course completion? And we have no warning system for that, Mr. Burke, and that's my concern, that we're allowing students to wander, and then all of a sudden new regulations come, and we say we've got a big mess on our hands, and we do.
One thing
Ken, I don't know where we are vis-a-vis other schools. I will tell you, in my heart of hearts, I believe we're ahead of the game here, okay? Trust me, the reason you're hearing it today is it will be a big deal that you will be hearing about. A lot of students are going to lose their financial aid across America.
I can tell you, we are ahead of the game. We've gotten advice from the federal government. We've put our thoughts out before the federal government. We've even gotten compliments from the federal government about how well we're doing here at St. Petersburg College. One of the things I can tell you is this. We may not be able to measure ourselves against other institutions at this point in time, but we can measure ourselves against ourselves. To me, that's the most important thing. Before we can go elsewhere, we need to look at what we're doing right now for ourselves and how we can make ourselves better. One thing we can do, and we are putting in place for some metrics and measurables to look at, hey, where is our student body right now today? And we have things in place right now with this new policy that will tell us, hey, how are we doing based on what we looked like the first time we took the snapshot, and are we getting better? And from that standpoint, we can make the necessary adjustments or the necessary modifications to ensure that we are doing a better job amongst ourselves. As I said before, the federal government gives basically a broad umbrella of what you have to do, but they don't get into the details of telling you how to do it. That's why it's kind of tough to compare other institutions to other institutions, because you are not literally comparing apples to apples.
Mr. North, you've been holding the point. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's to that point. I agree with Mr. Burke. I think that you should go through the comparison and see how your benchmarks work, and then take a look and see what the other schools, how they're measuring themselves. Because it might be that and I don't know, right, but it might be that some of their benchmarks are going to provide some decidedly different results.
Well, I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I mean, I do think we need to get to a point where we can compare. And as institutions talk, because we do talk all the time, and we discuss, hey, what are you doing and how's it working for your institution? But again, one thing I think we got to keep in mindful of is this: keeping in mind the demographic of the student that we're working with here at St. Petersburg College versus the demographic of the student that, say, Valencia Community College is working with. There are a lot of variables that are involved with satisfactory academic progress. Once we can get it down to, say, some constant variables that each institution is looking at, then we can truly compare institution to institution. This is not just a situation with St. Petersburg College. Trust me, this is a national issue. That's why the federal government has come in and made some standardized things that every institution has to have in place. But I think we're going to get there.
Last discussion, we said we needed some target comparative institutions. This discussion, we said we need some target. We ought to find 5 or 6 institutions that are like us, work at the staff-to-staff level, and we can develop. It wouldn't take us an afternoon's worth of calling around to get that information.
I think it'll be, I think like Mr. Burke says, that'll tell you whether or not you're too high or too low. It looks to me like it's too high, but I'm with you.
Yeah, I was going to say, suppose we end up being the best at this, it's still going to be too high, right? Yeah, you know, that's my sense. But let's find out. Let's find out.
Oh, yeah, I'd be a lot less worried if you were the best.
We have the most recent statistics that we've had here internally. 10% of our students are on suspension, 9% on warning, and 3% are being suspended. So 3% of our population have lost their ability to obtain financial aid.
All right, I want to move through the financial aid. I can't remember what else. We've hit the key areas, okay? You guys have zeroed right in on why we're having this discussion. It's new, it's changing, it's untidy, but it's big. Okay, so again, we're hitting it as hard as we know how. What remains in this presentation? I want to get through this one, okay?
Discussion about normal debt.
Oh, we have a good chart that follows this.
The default one, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Default rate. Okay. And right now, our default rate, our cohort default rate is 12.5%. The actual average rate for community colleges in the state of Florida is 11.9%. We're right smack dab in the middle compared to the other colleges. This is something we do have really accessible data on because it is all, symmetrical, so to speak. But again, we are about 15 in the concept of 25 colleges, community colleges in the state of Florida. So we're right smack dab in the middle as far as that's concerned.
There's one other chart here that I really like, because Mr. Burke, it talks about something that we discussed earlier this week.
Could you explain, though, Dr. Law, I certainly don't know it, is I know we have to be concerned as policymakers, where before this really didn't matter too much, but now we're held accountable for our college's default rate. And how are we held accountable by the feds, and we could potentially
lose our ability to provide Title IV assistance? Now, we've always been held accountable.
Well, what's that mean, though, to us?
What no financial aid for students. If you get to, what's the number, 20%?
30. Yeah. 30%.
You could lose financial aid.
You can
There
lose the
are
ability
colleges
to
for whom
provide.
that's a problem. Okay, that's clearly we're a long way from 30%. But, I'm not very happy with the trend line.
But this is something which this has been a recent thing to hold colleges a heck of a lot more accountable than we were, and it really was geared towards the for-profits, to be quite honest with you, who had tremendous default rates.
If the feds are underwriting, the reason it was called a guaranteed loan is because the banks only had to show due diligence to try to collect it. They didn't get it. The Fed sent them the money anyway. So,
well, at this trend, you will hit 30.
I'm short-stopping all of the interventions that we put in place in the development to start. We're on top of that part, but if you want, we'll bring a different presentation back. But trust me, we are on top of that issue. Okay.
A few things to keep in mind. as it relates to the increases, again, the economic situation that we dealt with in the last couple of years. Pinellas County is, one of the hardest hit areas in the United States of America. Our average unemployment rate about 6 or 7 months ago was about 15%. So that has a lot to do with it as well. The other thing that you have to look at is the cohort default rate went from just measuring 2 years of repayment to now measuring 3 years of repayment. So that makes a big difference. You're looking at more borrowers now, and there's more time for students to, not pay their loans.
We have one that shows average loans, though. That's the one I want to get to. And here's one, Ms. Burke, that we talked about, okay?
When we look at what has been awarded so far this year, the average rate for our lower division, the average amount that's being borrowed on each loan is $7,800. And we look at our upper division, is $9,400. Now, I would like to give you a little bit more perspective on that. That does seem high, specifically for a community college. One thing I will say is, again, keeping in mind the student that we're dealing with typically right here. Independent, already working full time, so if they're making a decision to come to college, they're going to have to reduce the work that they can perform, so they have to make up that income some other way.
On that 7,800, is it including the Pell in there too?
No, this is student loan.
Just loans?
Just student loans, yeah. This
So
is
they
average
may be
student
getting
loan.
Pell in addition to that?
Yes. Now, one thing you need to also understand, our students are not borrowing at the maximum amount that can be borrowed for any given year. The maximum that can be borrowed at the lower division level is $10,500. The maximum amount that can be borrowed at the upper division level is $12,500. So the one thing I will say is this, our students are making wiser choices and not accepting the maximum amount that they can borrow. They are reducing it and doing a better job, a much better job of taking only that money that they need, to pursue their post-secondary education.
I'm really nervous about students borrowing $8,000 a year. I think that's trouble.
What is the difference between lower and upper?
Freshman,
first 2 years.
First years,
Got it.
these are the baccalaureate students.
Okay.
And their costs are slightly higher at the baccalaureate level. Just so you have it, $99 million in $8,000 increments.
And currently, like Mr. Burke said, there is other than the possibility of not being able to give out further loans at 30%, there's no clawback provision. Okay.
Sounds like a financial industry.
Yeah.
When they talk about the higher ed bubble, this is what it looks like. But, for us, this is $7,800. There are students borrowing $25,000 and $30,000 a year in the independent sector. I mean,
Yep.
Major universities. All right. Good dialogue on financial aid. I think your guidance is find some metrics that would compare us to other institutions to give you a better sense of how well we're doing. We'll continue to monitor. I think we have a report for you in January as to what actually happened with our students when we kicked in the new standards here at the end of this semester. I'm nervous. Enrollment is soft. We look to be 2% low versus last year, and we believe it is these students holding back to register. Some of them can't register yet until they conclude this semester. So we know that we're artificially holding out a handful of already enrolled students. Ms. Burke.
Just a comment, especially for our two new board members, because this, a light went off over my head at one time at one of these meetings early on as to where we get our money from as a college, and I always thought, well, why do we care about the feds? It's always the state. We get our budget from the state, and I guess it used to be at one time our tuition, the ideal was that the student paid a third and the state paid 2/3, so now it's up to 50-50 if you look at the most recent data. So the state's subsidizing a student for 50%, and the student tuition comes from the other 50%. But that tuition is coming by 60% of our students are getting it through financial aid, which is a federal program. So the federal impact on our college has grown tremendously compared to where it was 20 years ago. And it's all financial, almost all, you can't say all in anything, but almost virtually all financial aid's federal programs. So just, I just never knew where the money flowed through to us, but that's how it flows through to us. So if you think about 60% of the 50% is coming through federal aid dollars for our students to be here.
Actually, our operating budget is right at $150 million, and we give student financial aid of $180 million. I mean, we're flowing more money than our operating budget. So, what we bring back in tuition is a portion of what the students are borrowing. So, problematic.
Yeah, that's interesting. What percentage of the 180 million is actually going to us?
Whatever the tuition portion would be, I'd have to calculate that, right? But if they borrow $7,800, we don't know how many credit hours they've done, but do the math at $300 increments. If they took 20 hours, that'd be $6,000.
I would guess around 40 million.
Yeah, I'd have
Just
to
based
do a
on
little.
what our tuition revenue
We can
is.
figure that out, though. We can
revenue.
figure out what we've billed financial aid.
Tuition revenue about 60 million.
By the way, it's good to have Roger from the governor's office here at our meeting.
Yes,
nice
thank
to
you.
see you
I
there.
didn't see him speaking here. Our guys want to brag a little bit. They have withdrawal percent by age, ethnicity, full-time, part-time. They're sitting here using our new BI system, okay? We've created
That's
our
great.
own monster, okay? Give me some numbers by age.
So by age withdrawal rate, we're just looking again at last fall. 21 and under, the withdrawal rate is 7.9%. The largest group is 22 to 25, that kind of mid-range. They have a 10% withdrawal rate. 26 to 35 is 9.75, and 36 and older is 8.81.
It's spread. That's not.
it's
None of them jump out.
Part-time, full-time, we talked about before about success. Our full-time students, withdrawal rate is 1%. For a part-time, it's 13%.
Oh, that's your problem.
Look at ethnicity.
There it is.
Our largest two cohorts, largest cohort is our African American students with 12.3%. American Indian, 11.11. It's a much smaller group overall, students in terms of enrollment. And then our multi-ethnic group is 10%.
When I do this with my wife and I'll give her those statistics, she always looks at me and says, "You didn't know that already?" So we're very proud of getting to these numbers, okay? So again, you kind of see us triangulating our problem. We finally understand who's in the group, what we're going to do about them, what the tools are. I hope you're getting a sense that we're not where we need to be, but we're heading in the right direction and picking up speed. We pretty much took our input here, okay, to get the metric of the comparability, okay? I just want to make sure we keep moving here and leave time for budget at the end, okay? If we squeeze that part, we're not going to be happy, okay? Some of these can go a little further. What's up next?
Segment 3, workforce, distance learning, and global international.
Stan Vitatogo, and Stan's tidy, unless he starts telling jokes, then he's got the best Civic Club jokes of anyone.
Just a very brief overview of our workforce programs. A lot of good things going on there. When we say workforce, we mean the 4-year programs, which are all directed towards workforce. We have 38 associate science and 2-year programs that are directed at workforce. We have 46 certificate programs offered for credit, which are part of these associate degree programs, and then we have our non-credit offerings as well. All of that comprises our workforce programs. Our 38 associate of science degree programs include a wide variety of things, everything from music technology to health programs, manufacturing technology, engineering technology, technology, etc. 24 Bachelor of Science or Bachelor of Applied Science degrees. Some examples include nursing, public safety, business management. All of our programs have significant advisory committees, and the purpose of these advisory committees is to keep our curriculum on track. It's to let us know that if we're offering a computer language that maybe it's time to change from COBOL to Cold Fusion, or if we have a particular piece of equipment that we're using, well, here's the piece of equipment that you need to be looking at because this is what you're going to be seeing in the future. Or that the outcomes that we're teaching for our graduates are on track or off track. We have over 500 people from industry who volunteer their own time to come and sit on those committees and help us work with that.
Okay, do you need some?
Just trying to find my notes.
Our certificate programs include many of the same areas that we have in our associate science degree programs, but they're designed for people who might only want a 12 credit or 21 credit program. They're very high value certificates. The new term out is stackable in the sense that you can take one certificate, for example, in project management, and then you might also want to add to that Linux system administrator. So these certificates are stackable in that sense.
The certificates generally are, think 1 year or less in terms of time. They're not 2-year programs, they're not 4-year programs. They are focused, skills-based certificates.
We graduate a significant number of students from our workforce programs, 942 associate of science degree, 1,033 from the bachelor's programs, and 614 are certificate programs. I should note that the overall placement rate from those programs is over 90%. We also work to smooth the transition from high school to college with our articulation agreements. We have a number of other career pathways programs designed to help people make that transition. It's a difficult transition for students. Offering them a little bit of credit towards a degree is often an incentive and helps them bridge that gap. On our non-credit side, corporate training is one of the most significant endeavors. Corporate training includes things like professional training for people in the workforce. It might be a financial planning course. It can be technology courses. We also offer courses for our students in remedial math that they take for in the non-credit area that have been very successful. And we have a language institute, which is the brainchild of Dr. Cooper, which has been doing very well. And this is teaching not only foreign languages, but students who need to build up their proficiency in English in order to take credit classes. You can see our profit and loss statement there. We've turned a corner here recently where we're in the black, not as much as we'd like to be, but far better to be in the black than in the other direction.
Before you get off that, when you who pays this? Is this still paid by individuals or actual businesses in the community?
Both.
Both. And what is the percentage? If you made I don't know what your total budget is, but if it was $100, would 50 of it come from businesses and 50 from students?
I don't know the answer to that. Jim Connolly's sitting here. Maybe he has a quick answer for you. He's a director of our corporate
We have
training.
a 35 to 50% margin.
35% is business?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you meant a revenue of $100.
Right, that's what I'm
35 to 50% is, it's negotiated, and that's usually.
I think it's a
No,
question.
no,
of
I
how
know.
much
That was
are
different.
Individual people paying versus how much are corporations paying in terms of the split here.
Let's find it. It tends to, some courses, the business might even hire us to do the whole course.
Right.
Okay. In some, we just advertise it and people come. You saw the, variation on the learn to earn kind of thing. But we'd have to look at third-party billings, okay, and figure that part out. I don't
But
have
we
that.
had some signature ones like Morton Plant. We did for a while, didn't we?
Oh,
A big program with
we have
them.
a pretty good client list where we have some ongoing ones. You'll see some of the health areas where we're very big. But other, Ceridian has been a client of ours for a good long time.
This is the Learn to Earn program that we talked about a little earlier, one that we just rolled out last year. You can see the enrollment has increased. I said approaching 1,000, I was wrong. It's really approaching 2,000. The enrollment has fallen off in November primarily because of the Thanksgiving holidays. And December, we don't have the complete numbers out yet, but we look for those to be very high as well. We also offer continuing education classes in health. This is to recertify the people in the various health professions that need licensure courses to keep going. We have the largest program of its kind in Florida. We offer more individual licensing classes than anybody else. We partner with a lot of healthcare organizations to offer those. The last bullet there is really kind of a sample. We teach a program called the Assisted Living Facility Manager Program. And as an example of how successful that is, the graduates the last time around, 14 of those graduates will go out and start their own assisted living facility. 12 of them are employed in another assisted living facility.
Do you provide CE like that for other traditions or practices, or is it just for health?
Well, we do, and the corporate training we do for things like real estate, insurance, and that kind of thing, in the health division, only the health area.
Right.
Just some enrollment numbers there. You can see in the last year we served about 7,500 people. Revenue picture there. Again, the margins are huge, but we are in the black, which is where we'd like to be. At our All-State campus, one of the kind of quiet success stories that we have here at the college, you can see they offer programs to emergency services personnel. everything from police and fire to Homeland Security. There's a significant amount of training that they do in Homeland Security. You'll see that number on the bottom there, which is, I think, quite impressive. 134 million people that they serve worldwide through satellite programs that they beam up to different law enforcement, and there might be classes in port security or airport security, all that kind of thing. Most of that work is done under contracts with the federal government. Some new things. We're always looking at new degree opportunities. We have a short-term program in medical assisting that we're considering, another associate degree in occupational therapy assistance. We're building a new facility, I should say we're retrofitting a facility on the Clearwater campus that will be focused primarily on manufacturing technology, which we're calling the Collaborative Center for Engineering Technologies. We have done quite a bit of work in medical device manufacturing. We've had some substantial National Science Foundation grants. We've just submitted a proposal to become a national center for medical device manufacturing education for the whole country. We have some articulation agreements in place, and we're working on some legislative issues, particularly in the health area, primarily in the area of community health workers. Any questions for me?
Thanks. I have a question. Is there any tracking been done on job placement from the Learn to Earn program?
We have, but it's difficult because most of the people just don't report back to us what they've done. But the ALF program, that's one of the Learn to Earn programs, and that's one where the success rate was phenomenally high. But we just don't have real good data on all of those. Yes, Tim?
On the area of global education, is there any effort to look into a semester-based program?
Yeah, we have a presentation come out next.
That's
Okay,
later.
next presentation.
I just saw that up there. I
Yep,
just
nope,
wondered.
we're going to get to it. Those are the three. I just want to close out on workforce. Good forward motion. We've not made a decision on new programs because, quite frankly, we're holding our breath on budget and upfront cost and some of those. The other part is, I'll say this gently, the college presidents have not met with the governor yet. That's in the works for January. But I guess I keep saying if I had committed to 700,000 jobs, I'd get the 28 college presidents in the room on a regular basis and say, ladies and gentlemen, there's more to be done here. I think there's more for us to be done, and we look forward to working with our friends at Workforce Florida. And I think Governor Scott is going to discover colleges here pretty soon. Okay?
Could you just hit on that meeting that you had here at the college?
Well, yeah, in our collaborative labs here, we hosted all of the leaders of the Department of Economic Opportunity, the governor's #1 priority last year, to bring everything under one umbrella for workforce and job development in the whole state. And the legislation required them to develop a 5-year plan, and they used this collaborative lab facility for developing that plan. We had probably 120 or 130 leaders from around the state, including all of the higher-ups from Tallahassee. I got a very nice letter from the governor yesterday. Roger, thank you for your help with that, but he is aware of that activity and sent me a very kind thank you note for hosting that. So we are a player in that, but our programs are still working their way through. I'm feeling better this year than last year. I think we have a lot more traction. You see the indicators are heading in the right direction. Getting some of the finances squared away has been a little bit of a challenge. Good enough? We'll keep rolling then. Distance learning, another big public policy area, okay? And Vice President Cooper will give us this. This is a nice presentation.
Good morning. I'd like to share some data. First of all, just to give you a sense, we're very proud of what we have accomplished in online learning and education. Our growth has been phenomenal. If we begin by looking at the percentage of online courses, you can see that we're running about 30%. When we look at the percentage of online student semester hours, you'll see that that's a little bit higher when we compare it to our other instructional modalities. And one of the reasons for that is because in class, we're limited by the number of seats in the classroom, whereas in an online section, we don't have those limits, so we can increase those sections slightly if there is a need. And then when we look at the percentage of students taking at least one online course, we see that that is almost 50% in most of our semesters. We see a little higher in the summer. because we have transient students who are home for the summer that are at other universities or colleges, and oftentimes they want to pick up another course while they're home, and they usually want to do that online. Some of our own students want to travel or work more, or the kids are home for the summer, and so that allows them to continue their education. When we look at the number of our faculty that are involved in the online instructional modality, we see that there are about 40% of all of our faculty. That includes our adjuncts and percent of load. But when we look at our full-time, we're running close to 50% of our full-time faculty teaching 2 to 4 courses. And so we're very proud of that as well. We think it's important for all of our faculty to be skilled in this particular instructional modality.
And point to the cells that you go a little bit slower here. Okay, so spring 2011, full-time, 479,
Right.
49%. Right, okay.
Full-time faculty.
And then they
Teaching at least one online class. And then when we look
third
at the
teach
number
one
of
course,
classes that they're
half teach,
teaching.
right. Only Florida College at Jacksonville comes close to this. The average across in the credit hours across all Florida's colleges was 15%, runs from a low of 2% to a high of 34, 35, whatever ours is. Okay, we're by far the highest.
Now, obviously, our growth has been phenomenal, but we also want to look at our success rate. And when we look at the overall, the picture is not bad, but we know that there are some courses, some areas where students do better in the online modality than in some of our other instructional modalities, but we know in some areas it's the reverse. Students do not do as well in the online. But what we wanted to show here is that we do have a difference between lower and upper division. Upper division, of course, are the students who are more focused. They have their career option, they're on a specific track, and they're more likely to be successful. Whereas in our lower division, it's a much larger population of students, much more disparate population. We have everything from those in our remedial classes or getting college prep classes all the way up through the sophomore year. So that's probably some of the reasons why we see the differences. So we want to drill down. We want to make sure that in those areas where there is a gap, that we are focused on improving. And so these are looking at discipline areas where we have courses that are taught in the online modality. They're not specific courses. So for example, in speech, we have introductions to speech, we have public speaking. So they're groups of courses, but we think that the gap between what we're seeing in the success rate in other instructional modalities when compared to the online instructional modality is of concern. And so we are asking our deans and faculty to focus on what we can do to create better success when we make those comparisons. We know, for example, in the developmental area, students are oftentimes challenged in developmental courses to begin with, and then when in the online modality, it's hard for them not to get lost in the shuffle. So we have put some things into place to address these concerns. Let's look at some of the different programs that are available to our students in the online modality. This is growing. Those that are underlined and starred are the programs where we only offer them online. One of the reasons for that is we found niche environments, and these are the ones that show good success rates in the online modality. Many of them are 80% and above. Finally then, what are the strategic issues that we're dealing with in regards to online instructional learning? Student success and completion. We want our students to finish what they start, and we want them to be successful. So there are a number of things that we're putting into place to assist. We also have our courses that have been developed being reviewed, being refreshed, so that we're not only keeping up with what's happening within the discipline area, but we're making sure that those courses are interactive, that there's opportunity for the student to interact with peers, interact with the instructor, to make sure that they are successful and they're going to complete the course and not withdraw. We're also making sure that any new faculty that are coming in are skilled in online learning or at least enhanced technology in regards to their teaching. We're doing ongoing training with our WITS team and our Center of Excellence for Teaching and Learning. There's also another big area of concern that we're hearing from our accrediting bodies, SACs, as well as federal government, in regards to, are the students who have signed up for the class the students who are taking the tests? Right now we have password-protected courses, but this is an area of concern. So more of our faculty are opting for proctored testing, which means that there's monitored testing that occurs for the student to be able to complete the tests within the course, at least for the midterm and the final. One thing that we are looking at in regards to the intensity of the number of proctors then that involves, the number of computer classrooms that involves, is there technology available that would allow us to expand the proctored testing? And that's what is one of the things that we're piloting right now. It's called Proctored U. That is a technology way of allowing students to be able to take a proctored test at home. It's a $25 fee per test, and it's a matter of they're using their webcam, and then the staff of Proctored U will monitor them during the testing via their webcam to ensure that they are the individual and that they are doing what they need to be doing during the testing time. We've already shared with you last time the state authorization challenges. Various states are requiring different fees and applications if we're going to offer our online programs to residents in those states. Some of these states, it's very expensive and very involved, so we're looking at making some adjustments in that regard. And then finally, we want our growth to be planned, and we want any expansion to address the needs of students, for example, with disabilities, so that they have access to our courses. We're seeing an increase in students with disabilities wanting to use the online instructional modality, so the course has to be set up in a particular way that addresses their needs. And so we want that growth to be planned and properly executed.
Yeah, I have some. Is it the cost? I assume online courses are much less expensive to offer than traditional classroom teaching. Is that right?
Well, we don't have the facility charge, but then we have the technology, and we have the need of the staff to maintain the technology and the infrastructure.
So is it?
I would think in some respects they probably balance out. Dr. Oliver might be able to help with that particular question.
I would say that's probably fair. The cost of technology to keep up with the ongoing need for more interactivity. Online learning has changed dramatically. It changes every year. So there are fixed costs for that, but not facilities costs.
So we haven't discerned, we have not tried to figure out that that's cheaper, better, faster yet, okay? We think that's going to happen, but the upfront cost is huge for this, okay? The development cost is big.
Okay.
Yesterday I was with the Florida Virtual School folks. They talk about a cost of between $150,000 and $350,000 to develop a high school course, to put it online. We're not in that range by any stretch of the imagination.
Are you higher or lower?
Oh, we're way lower, but we have diverted faculty time to develop the courses. So that's where that's the hard part to decide how much. When part of my time is now devoted to developing a new course, we really don't assign that cost to that. We've already got your salary in the budget.
So do you know if you're charging enough or not charging enough per credit hour for online courses, or how do you determine that if you don't know what the cost is?
Somebody may have to give me the specifics, but, well, a credit is a credit is a credit, so the state tells us how much we can charge for that. They do allow for a distance learning, but that's restricted too. That's a fixed amount too, isn't it? Is that determined individually?
Bill, can I say something?
Please,
on the topic?
Ken.
Just, that's a good question. is the same question probably every board member has, but it doesn't work that way here at the community college system or the state college system. We know certain courses cost us a lot of money. For example, like nursing courses, in-person courses cost far exceed the cost of what we're getting for tuition or reimbursed from the state. And basically, we know we're making that up with the less expensive cost offerings like the humanities or something like that. So our tuition's not based on this is the cost of the cost and this is the revenue that comes model. I mean, I know that defies business sense.
That doesn't make any sense.
But that's the but and that's why when we've had initiatives from past governors, Governor Bush, to say increase your allied health. But we're going to reimburse you the same as we reimburse you for humanities costs from the state. It's like, well, help us. I mean, you know, allied health is probably our most expensive, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tanja, and it's our most expensive programs to add courses, and that's where the demand, they keep wanting more and more offerings there, but we'll go broke doing that because we're going to get the same reimbursement from the state, the same tuition from the student as a very low-cost offering.
Did you say that the state mandates the amount of money you can charge per class hour to a student?
Yes.
And that has the state does not take into account the amount of money it costs to provide that?
No, absolutely not. There's a single dollar amount for every credit hour. There's no differentiation.
But the decision what we offer.
It's our decision as to the mix of courses that are offered. If we decide, we can assess whether or not that meets a community need, what the demand is. Again, if you have nursing, you know you're going to end up with some high-cost programs.
Goes back to what Robert said. We have to do the right thing regardless of how the dollars.
Well, we should take that into account as we
no,
examine what we do offer, considering that is the reality of it.
Because I've often said, why does the state incentivize us by offering a higher reimbursement for the allied health areas, but they don't? Am I correct in that?
Correct.
Sort of. It takes all the real need for a budget out, doesn't it?
Let's say this. Well, we'd like to think there's a need, but well, it's a very different analysis. I mean, that's why it starts with trying to discern community need and what's doable. You're on the issue. We're getting squeezed like hell. You know, you see the enrollment growth, no additional money. All you can do then is charge a flat tuition rate to students, depending upon where the growth is.
But let me tell you, that was somewhat attractive for us and Dean, you'll have to correct me as I make mistakes here. When we went to the bachelor's program for nursing, there's no clinicals involved with that. It's all online or in the classroom. It's a lot less expensive for us to award that last 2 years for the bachelor's in nursing than it is the first 2 years. And so that was a win-win for everyone. There was a great demand to have the bachelor program, and it was a low-cost item for us to offer that.
And you know, Tim, in some strange way, it kind of goes back to the discussion we had at the beginning of the morning about all of these students that are signing up for classes, using our resources and dropping out. And I think the only thing we can do is try to be more efficient with the use of our resources and dollars.
Are we going to...
Can I have one more question?
Please, I don't mean to cut off any discussion, okay?
No, that's okay.
I wish we had better answers for you.
Is your withdrawal rates on the... Actually, I don't know if these questions matter anymore.
They do.
Are the withdrawal rates on online higher than they are for in-class?
Yes.
They are? Okay. Yes. All right. But you don't have the same cost, you don't have the same cost layers built into online, or do you? Not really, right?
Not really. I think if you did a marginal analysis, you'd find the next student doesn't cost us anywhere near what the other. First, for an on-campus, you got to provide a seat. You know, the intuitive margin analysis. The next student who signs up doesn't cost us quite as much as getting the course up and running.
Right, because you're not saving a seat. You can have as many on an online course as you want, right?
That's right.
Okay,
yeah.
so.
And in fact, it's even better because we can ratchet up the faculty's workload in increments that measures that. So it's very efficient as it gets bigger.
Okay. And then Proctor U, is that?
You'll have to ask the Vice President. That was a new one for me.
Is that a contracted entity, or is that somebody that you have on staff?
No, that is a contracted, and we're just piloting that particular group at this time. There are others available, but we felt that we want to get ahead, particularly because of the growth that we've had in online. And so we're trying that particular group out.
We require students, for the most part, to come to campus during certain time periods to take the tests. And it's, for distance, that's a real problem. You know, I mean, it takes away some of the benefit of distance. But who's on the other end of that computer is a big issue for the accrediting bodies and others. There's some real concern about that, and we don't have good insight. In fact, the Florida virtual people were really funny because they talk about parents helping their middle school and high school kid at the other end of the computer too, and that's a much more likely scenario in many cases. So, you think you know, we were all better at arithmetic than we are at college algebra. So, okay.
Proctor you a for-profit?
I'm sure. Mr. Chairman, we have one more on global international, and then we can focus on budget and next steps. Okay, so we'll get if we're not there, we're close. Okay, so Provost Dr. Karen White, who is Provost for the St. Pete Gibbs campus, but also as her responsibility has the global and international education as part of her college-wide responsibilities.
And I have the privilege of formally introducing to you Rod Davis. Rod has been at the college for 7 years. He brings to his new position of Interim Director of International Programs deep connections with our students, including our international students, and with our faculty. Just prior to this, Rod was the in-charge person of student activities, now known as Student Life and Leadership, at the Clearwater campus. He has taught some classes in both the lower and upper division. He enjoys good relationship with our faculty and brings high energy and good focus to the international programs team, and I'm happy to introduce him to you.
Great, thank you. Well, thank you for that introduction. I'd like to go ahead and start off with some of the key areas for international and global awareness. Now, please keep in mind that this has been an ongoing collaboration, and I'd really like to thank Dr. Law, extend a handout to the deans, faculty, and our students. Gathering this data, what I have chosen to do was take a look at some of the schools and universities that have been doing it and doing it well, and this is what we've sort of come up with. One of the first bullets there, global awareness, is something that we've sort of been doing. We've already been putting on the student transcripts that they have taken study abroad, identifying those areas. We've already been giving sort of credit to the classes that are internationally, international courses, but this is a good area of opportunity. And this is something that I think a lot of colleges and universities in the state of Florida are looking into. We've also took a look at some faculty engagement, which is important, and everyone knows in the business, international, that faculty pretty much lead study abroad programs. So we need to really engage our faculty and make sure that the curriculum and the academics meet what we're trying to do. Expanding study abroad programs, I'll touch on some of those. Focus countries, a report that, strategic report that we've had on hand by Dr. Furlong that identifies some of the economically sound countries and areas that we would like to focus on. Countries, for example, India, Brazil, Canada, and in China, as some of the more BRIC countries, and faculty survey and faculty training. Faculty engagement, what are we planning to do for next semester? One of the big pushes is a creative session. We'd like to kick off with the big event next semester, and we would like to invite all of our current, new, and adjunct faculty to attend this event. We are going to be bringing in a keynote speaker from USF. When I saw his credentials, my jaw dropped. He's got 3 PhDs from other worldly known universities and 2 MDs, and he's going to be talking a little bit about the curriculum piece and how to sort of infuse that creativity in curriculum-based programs for study abroad students. We're also going to be looking at sharing some of the best practices, so we've asked to invite some of the key players in international programs throughout the state. Broward was one of the ones that we're looking at, Valencia, and HCC and USF. So hopefully they'll come in and talk to faculty about getting a little bit more engaged about some of the creativity that we can add to our programs. Aside from this, what we're going to do as well is we're going to have some mini sessions. We don't just want to kick off the event, throw this out there. We want the faculty to come back to me so we can work together to design programs that are effective for our students and will lead us into the whole global and international arena as a college. Expanding study abroad programs. There's a huge emphasis, as I said before, on faculty input. I've been beating the bushes, and I've also been talking to my staff about how and why it's important for us to get more engaged with our faculty members. Collaboration with other SPC's departments. Service learning. The other week, I believe, Petersburg College came out #1 as study abroad programs in the nation, and part of that is with their study abroad or in service learning programs that they utilize. We're also going to take a look at how to infuse study abroads for the winter and the spring breaks. We want to get a little creative there and identify some cost inefficiencies for the college and the students. We want to do this by also utilizing some partners and vendors and seeing if we can bring the cost down of some of these trips. A typical trip is average around $3,000, and some of our students are not willing to pay. So the creativity comes in how we explain to the student why this is going to be useful, whether through resume building and whatnot. And then, of course, we're also going to look at some processes, improvements, and marketing enhancements. Process improvements, I always joke to say to our faculty that I like for them to be able to click a button and put together a study abroad trip, because the proposal process is a little bit difficult. So we've modified some of our online processes, and we're looking to improve that process to make it faster and easier to work along with our faculty. Marketing enhancements, we need to speak the students' lingo. And that to me is imperative. We need to let them know why it's important for them to have that global awareness and global perspective. Faculty survey. We survey our students, but we don't necessarily survey our faculty when it comes to the importance of study abroad and in globalism and whatnot. So I've reached out to a couple of universities that have done this in the past and sort of pecked a little bit and formulated a survey that we're going to be sending out, and we're also going to be sharing some of the results when we do that creative session in the spring. We also want to design some events that link students to faculty. This is important. Our faculty need to understand what is important for the students and what is, I hate to use the word sell, but what they want to see in a program, but they also need to infuse some curriculum aspects to these study abroad trips as well. Faculty training is imperative. We need to look at the itinerary building and new initiatives. They need to look at some in-country particulars. A lot of the other day we were talking about a trip to Greece, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, and we need to know what is going on in Greece. What are some of the aspects economically that could affect and sort of bring some programs there. And we also want to do student orientation. Emergency planning is key, and continue the improvements upon best practices here at SPC. And that's all I have. Sir.
Okay, I'll go back. Now I properly ask my question. Most of our programs, it seems, have been several week programs. Is that correct?
15-day programs or less.
Have we started exploring how a study abroad for a semester program can work with our college?
One of the things about lengthy programs is the cost. And then I have looked into it. Some of these trips can go anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000, which is not really feasible for our students. But there are creative ways that we can do this through possibly partnerships with other universities. And that's where I would like to dive in a little bit more to see if we can expend it, lengthen the trip. But one of the areas that I'd like to embark on to get more students out is shortening the trips. Maybe we can do 5-day trips, 4-day trips during spring break or whatnot, and then link that to service learning.
I guess, and I went to Earl and the students who went to Northern Ireland, I went to their presentation, and it obviously was beneficial for them to experience what they did. I'm just not sure if it's meeting as much an academic mission as maybe I thought should be as part of it too. It's, how much more do they know about Irish history, do they know about Irish culture or whatever is what are you trying, I'm not sure, it was very unclear to me what's the academic mission of, it's a college. We're not a travel agency, we're a college. So what's the academic mission of and what are the takeaways that the student's supposed to receive from going to Brazil? Is it economic? Is it cultural? Is it historical? Is it just being around another culture, and how integrated is it? But getting back to the semester thing, and I have zero knowledge in this stuff. I know like Florida State has a program, it has buildings in London and buildings in Florence where they have students housed and so forth. I'm just not sure of how many other partnership opportunities there are like that, because that to me is a real academic focus, that you're basically taking a semester and you're earning credit hours while in Florence on and that. So I'm just not sure if it's feasible. And Broward, I guess, do they do that? Do you know, Dr. Law?
Scores of locations that way. This is an area, Ken, I think there is huge opportunity for us to partner. We don't have to invent the wheel here. We should piggyback on the existing ones that are driven that way. The key is to get faculty to own it, though, so that it does have an academic basis. So you can bring it into the business program. You can bring it into any number of your academic programs, so that it has a home in that sense. It's not a tour of museums in Western Europe. I mean, it doesn't have to be that.
But that's currently what it is today, right?
Yeah. And but the language program in Spain is a little more focused than that. But other than that, it's really what you, yes.
Right. And how many students participate?
It depends. Each trip anywhere from 10 to 20 students, depending on.
So over the course of a year, how many different students participate?
Around 60 to 70 or 75, I think was last year's number.
But I see this as a greatly expanding area as people just, this is even. Yeah, we are behind.
It's a normal part of college life now, where a student will spend a semester overseas or abroad.
I had my daughter spend a semester in Barcelona. It was actually very beneficial, but she went there and studied, so I'm afraid she wouldn't have got a heck of a lot out of it if she went over there and was for 5 days.
What program was that through, just out of curiosity?
FSU.
Do they have a facility over there?
Apparently. At least that's what I was led to believe.
They have one in Florence. I didn't know they had Barcelona. That's interesting.
Yeah.
But you mentioned after
It's Valencia,
college,
I'm sorry. Valencia.
80% of their students study abroad.
Absolutely.
And their goal is 100 for Eckerd. I mean, we're not Eckerd, we don't want to be Eckerd, but it's just, it's a major part of the college experience.
All right, I want
Very
you
good.
to know we're pedal to the metal on this one to figure out how to improve this. This is an area where I think we're off standard and we can get back to it.
Great.
All good. Okay.
Thank you.
Now, let's get to the meat of the coconut here. Okay.
It's obvious that most everything we've talked about today involves funding in some way.
You think?
And as I've listened to some of the comments, I recalled something that I think is real significant to the way what is involved in our budgeting, in our budgeting process. And when we're not so much looking at a profit, obviously, as we are to put as much of our resources into instructional, academic programs, student support as we can, and as little as we can to operate our areas, the business services, the IT, those areas as possible. And I pulled out just before I came up here the cost analysis. Right now, about 60% of our spending goes directly into either direct instruction, academic support, or student support. And that's pretty significant. That's above average for the state. Our institutional support, which again is the non-instructional areas, administrative areas, is about little over 13%. The state average is about 18%. So that's what we tend to do. We want to get as much shifted over into the instruction as we can. We're going to give you a fairly high-level view of the budget. Think about the budget. You can talk 10 minutes or you can talk 3 hours. It's hard to go in between.
Can you tell us, maybe to start with, the process this has been, what has gone over today has been a continuing conversation of what our strategic goals for the institution are as far as the student success agenda especially, that we all keep hitting on. How are we taking these priorities and going through the budget process in this coming year that's been different than in the past? Or how are we incorporating to say, like you asked, you have 3,800 students going to need an academic learning plan, individualized learning plan, and that means counseling appointments. How are we determining, okay, that needs X number of counselors, academic advisors, and therefore that's where it's fitting into this budget process? How is that being addressed? Because we can go through the numbers, which I know that's one of the things, but that's, how are we doing that?
I direct your attention. Last year, we had a strategic workshop, and we identified key areas that were there. From your dialogue today, you've got that in that book too, Tim, that's the vote. From your dialogue today, the deans, provosts, you've got all the key officers here, will develop budget strategies that say, here's what it would take to implement that. We have then a day in February when we will put these up by topic and say, what are the proposals to implement this in the year that starts next year? Obviously, we're building on a lot of existing things, so what's phase 2, what's phase 3? And we know that then in each of these key areas, we will distill the priorities that you've given us and the cost to enhance, to move forward, start something new, stop doing something.
That's February.
That's February. Along the way, we will be, so the convergence would be, we got the first blush of revenue from the governor. We don't have the details yet. We have the high-level details. They haven't released anything down. By January, we'll see the first legislative budgets, I would think, and we'll keep you informed as to what we think the revenue side of our budget will look like. We'll follow up on some of the things you've given us on the detail, the granular level, I think is the term you used, Tim. By February, we will have said, here is a plan of work that would execute your guidance in these key areas, okay? And then over the March, April, May, we would bring those to you at the board meeting, refine those, hammer the budget into a fixed account. And that then leads back to a final summary that says, you gave us guidance in December, we took it back, we brought it back to you in several steps, and then we have a budget that represents board guidance. That's the process we use. I hope we have the luxury of some time this year because the legislature meets a little bit early. So that's the process. You will see this every month on the board agenda in some form, headed toward the adoption of a budget. Again, in my view, we probably should have it all together by May. We will probably vote on it in June, okay? But just, you should expect we will have finished our work with you by May.
That's good. I think that's a good time frame and good outline as far as I'm concerned.
The next big piece that we also do, and we'll go back to the budget, but estimating how much money we're going to get, we have to make an enrollment estimate for next year. So we like to get the spring enrollment in our hand so we can analyze the trend line, the sub-trend line, see what's happening, get a sense of what the impact of our financial aid is, and those sorts of things. Then we'll make an enrollment estimate for next year, and of course then we just multiply it by the tuition rate to get a tuition estimate. But that's the way it works. So then we have the state piece, we have the tuition piece, and then we have to make it all fit. A little bit of some other fees as you see. It's iterative though, okay? So on this one, I think, Doug, we just want to indicate for the current year, even though enrollment is soft, we think we've already identified the reductions in the budget that would keep us within budget for the year. We're not feeling particularly stressed right at this second. We'll be fine for this year. What it means for next year is the next question, though. So you'll see we're still in balance. We've the way we handled some of the budgets, we had some contingencies already built in just in case for enrollment, and I think we're in pretty good shape on that.
Yeah, one of the things that when I looked at this slide and looked at the data where we are year to year, kind of gives us a sense of the impact that we have right now on having so much more of our budget made up of tuition. That we're up close to 60% now. So when you see a little variation in tuition, financially it has a much bigger impact than maybe it would have had, you know, in prior years. So we're looking right now to, this is a very conservative projection. Obviously we have to get through the spring. We'll know more as we go along. But we're looking at about a 600,000 surplus.
Doug, where are you getting that 60%? I'm not seeing that.
Well, when you take...
oh, are you talking the student fees with it,
yes,
the tuition?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because these are the technology fees,
okay,
the
fine.
distance fees,
Okay.
so on. So between the two of them, about 60%. But they're all impacted by that enrollment. So when one drops, they're all affected. So that's very significant. Let me introduce Jamel Connor to you. She's our Associate VP of Budget and Planning. That process that Dr. Law just described comes through her office, and she does a great job. She's going to tell you a little bit about kind of what we have to look forward to in July based on what we know now. Okay.
So Doug mentioned what we're kind of seeing now as we're going through the 11-12 year. And so in our trending, as we're looking at the new year for planning, we're anticipating right now for that to continue. Again, we're not going to know until we finish out and see what spring looks like. The other things that we know is we got the governor's budget last week. The governor's saying that he's going to continue to fund education, which is a good thing for us. So right now we're not anticipating any decrease in our revenues from the state, our program funding and our lottery funding. And they said that they are actually going to fund our operating cost of new facilities. And so we're estimating that to be about $335,000 for us. On the non-recurring funds, we have about $3 million in non-recurring funds in our overall state funding budget right now, the money that we get now. What's good news to us is that they're saying that they're going to be making that recurring money next year. So that's good because we'll be able to have that knowing it's going to be going forward and might not go away. The governor is estimating a 0% increase in tuition, and right now we're estimating 0% enrollment growth. The one other small thing that we put into this trending budget for next year is annualized tuition. And all that is when we did the budget this past year, we did a 3% tuition increase in fall, and then we did an additional 3% on top of that in the spring. So we didn't budget for a full 6% in the fall. So when we start the year off on July 1, we're going to have a fall. It's at that full 6% increase, so that incremental 3% is going to bring us about $600,000 there. So some areas that we're going to be watching at a high level as we're working through the budget is, as Dr. Law mentioned, spring enrollment, seeing how that turns out. Because once we know a little bit more about that, we're going to be able to develop our guaranteed schedule, know what courses and the volume of classes we're going to offer that will lead us to our revenue estimates. Will also help us estimate out what our cost of instruction is going to be based on those courses we're going to offer. So that's going to impact our personnel budget and our personnel cost. Cost to continue, some of the big items, utilities, we'll be looking at what we think is going to be happening with that next year. Our health costs, those are some of the big ticket items. And in the legislative session, what's going to come out, we know what the governor said, but in the end, what's going to happen with our state funding? Is there going to be a tuition increase? And if we just go to the next slide. And this is just saying, based on what happens with the state funding, for every 1%, that would be about $625,000 to us. In our funding, and that's both our program funding and our lottery funding we get from the state. And for every 1% enrollment growth for tuition, that's about $606,000.
These are just metrics for you to have in mind. So you hear the legislature, the House and Senate will develop budgets, and I suspect they will not be as generous up front as the governor has been. So we can anticipate that they will ask us to cut our budget by some numbers. I think 4 or 5% is the early estimate that I hear. What transpires in the end is something different, but if you back up, you can do the quick math. If they cut us 4%, $2.5 million bucks. And that would be a challenge to us, especially if there's no tuition increase, right? If I can offset, and that's what we've done, Mr. North. You see how it looks, okay? It ain't fancy, but it works. That's how we have. And then, of course, if you have some growth, you produce a little additional revenue as well. And that's what's kept the gears meshed for the last 4 or 5 years. So. Managing cost right now is the #1 piece because we don't have a very good revenue estimate for next year yet. So getting our costs fully documented, under control, knowing that we're going to be squeezed, get those in line as we move forward, as we close this semester, move forward to next semester. And we'll keep you informed along the way. I don't know, we don't know very much till the legislature plays its cards in January and February. Now, again, the good news is they will, I can't even say it completely, I'll try again. The good news is they will finish their work by March. And usually that comes much later in the year. So by an early time, we'll know what our legislative appropriation is, and we'll have a couple of months to hammer the final budget. Usually we're trying to get these things to converge by May to make it all work. Let's back, again, we don't have enough to go in, and we've provided everybody a printed copy of this year's budget, so if you want to start going through and looking, and if you have anything, we've certainly Jamel and Doug, our thing, we have it all on it's on an Excel spreadsheet, so you know, at whatever level you want, we can cross-tab it, we can do whatever, we're happy to make that available to you in whatever form. Questions, comments, observations?
I got a couple quick questions.
Sure,
yeah,
please,
okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry.
On your the achievements you had for the year, you said you delegated authority for hiring, purchasing, contracting. Now, was that something that did that cost money, or was that just simply something that made it easy?
It made it. Well, easy is a good word.
Right.
Our goal there was efficiency, and one of the main things on the purchasing was a big one, because we greatly expanded the use of our P-card, purchasing card program, for more routine purchases that were going through purchasing, requiring a lot of preliminary work, is now handled through the P-card program. And we put in place to do that kind of replace the input with a follow-up process of validating the billings each month and so on. So we put the controls after the fact instead of before but that's been a big one.
This is
Hiring
one I
job
found
offers.
myself signing for the hot dogs and cokes at the Clearwater Welcome Back for students, and I thought that the salaries on that form getting to me could probably be handled elsewhere.
Probably could have bought a lot more hot dogs.
I certainly am not in a position to decide how much hot dogs and how much Coke. So,
right.
But my point is, we've a normal range of business process is what you saw. Okay. We have frontline officers who have to manage their enterprise in a way that we had not let them do it previously.
And then you have an internal auditor that will go along and check your inline management law.
We created a compliance officer as part of that.
So they'll check B-card purchases.
Yes, right. Yeah.
All right. And then you said you changed your employee health insurance. Did you increase cost, reduce cost? What did you do with that?
No, we can't. We'll let you know. We think we reduced cost. Okay.
One thing that was the biggest change in there was a health savings account type program, and we were piloting it for the first year. And I think we had about 150 participants who enrolled through we just finished our open enrollment, and we're going to see how that works out over the course of the year. We're running about 1.2 million a month right now in claims, and so we think that the HSA plan, if it works out and more people enroll, is going to help us control those costs. But we have to continue to look at that.
We were losing money. We have a good health plan, but we were losing money on that, and it's starting to eat reserves. We've made, I think, a shift that everybody is headed toward in some form or another, and we've changed the premiums as well.
How many employees do you have?
There's about 1,200 in the plan.
Does that include family members?
No, that's employees. So it's closer to 3,000, a little over 3,000, I think, if you include total participants.
And that, by the way, that's where we hired Brown & Brown to give us the guidance on it. We hired them as consultants to help us with the design of the HSA.
Okay.
We had a couple of presentations at the board meeting just before you.
We've got a good body of. We'll make sure you have everything.
Oh no, I was just interested in what it was a positive or negative impact.
Well, I mean, everybody's dealing with the same. The trend line was very bad without the change.
Got it. And then the faculty compensation plan. What was that?
Last year was part of Dr. Law's plan. It had, number one, we were running way behind in any updates to our plan simply from the economy and so on. Over the years, we also had a plan that just wasn't working, wasn't consistent, had issues with it. So we put a group together with the faculty governance organization. They had a subgroup and spent, about 6 months, I guess, looking at all the pros and cons of what we were doing and what we needed going forward, and developed a new compensation plan that has basically a 3-year implementation plan. And we implemented the first phase of it this year. Phase 2 would go into next year.
A little higher expectation for faculty for the term. If you're here for 20 years, what do you have reason to think will happen to your salary? Can you move through the grid, move your way up? And that had not been happening. So people came and they had no understanding of what to even expect going forward. And we've created then a much more documented system of where you are, what you can expect under certain conditions as we make decisions moving forward with salary. Candidly, we had gone, I'll say 4, it might have been 5 years without a structural salary adjustment, and there's some catching up to be done. We phased that in over 3 years. I think that was at our June board meeting, and there's a handout there, we'll get that for you.
I just want to mention, when Dr. Law became president, the board established some priorities for him, and one of the priorities was to address the faculty compensation plan. This has been a sore subject topic for our faculty for a lot of years, and a lot during the search process came out with the faculty reps as far as about the plan. And it wasn't as much I deserve more money, it was how do I make it through here? I've been here 25 years and I'm at the midpoint. You know, what do I have to be here 50 years to make it to where my goal is, and hiring new faculty at above what current faculty were making, all these types of concerns. I mean, it was probably the #1 issue, I would say, would you disagree, with our faculty? And so it was a mammoth project, leadership-wise, to address. So I just want to put it in some perspective, because it was, as far as the board's concerned, we were as pleased as can be that Dr. Law got with the faculty senate, and together they came up with this plan, that there was buy-in from all the represented organizations. Not 100% of people are going to be happy, obviously, you never are going to achieve that, but everyone was represented at the table and had their voice heard and had buy-in by the faculty.
We spent a little money to fix some
problems,
so that we're not doing
we feel good about this as a board, or we did when this got accomplished, because it was just one of the priorities we set.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, this came out way better than the walkthrough yesterday. Your question, I think, a lot more honest. Okay. Sorry, Ms. Burke.
The tuition. Have the council presidents come in on record as opposing a tuition increase?
As opposing a tuition increase, no. We're keeping our powder dry.
Okay.
The governor's statement is really important, because it says here is a revenue estimate that we want to get there, and he's going to do it with state general revenue. The legislature is probably going to split their bet. They'll say we'll buy the revenue estimate, but it has to include a tuition increase and not all general revenue. That's what the legislature does annually. So we were pleased with the governor's recommendation. It was a strong statement of support. I suspect there's more dialogue on tuition.
Would you, at our January meeting, provide the board with where tuition at St. Petersburg College has gone maybe over the past 10 years per credit hour?
Yes.
Because I know it's way outpaced inflation by a tremendous factor, and we're now fully loaded, charging our students approximately $100, right under $100 per credit hour, and it's getting, one of the things that we're supposed to be is in our state college system is the affordable alternative for people in the community, and I think we're getting to the breaking point as far as price here, and I think we as trustees have to show some leadership in that regard too across the state, as far as do we just keep increasing tuition and the state keep decreasing its commitment to the state college system. And in February, do we have a majority of the board who's committed? Because I know I can't be there for the time that's designated February 1st.
Tallahassee, we don't have.
And I would just hope if we can't, hopefully there'll be a majority who can go, but if there's not, I hope we just look at an alternative date where St. Pete College can go up rather than focusing on, it's better to go there with other colleges, but I think it's, for us to visit our legislators, I think it's important that we have at least 3 or 4 of us going up there, so.
Okay, we've done that with
Can we relook at that date?
Sure.
If those dates don't work for folks?
Well,
There is a majority going up
it's not
already,
working
that's
for
fine.
everybody, no, I don't think we have a majority. So we've had some good times where we just pump it, get up there, walk around, make 5, 6, 8 meetings, talk to our delegation in context, and that's a powerful tool.
So can we work on that
I'll work
then?
on that, yes.
Thanks,
Okay,
I
that was
appreciate
very
that.
good meeting, Ms. Fine.
Could I ask, today we talked a lot about the finances and the restrictions, state decreasing funding, and our students can't afford things, but we spend very little time on raising revenue, whether it's foundation, whether it's facility usage, or the other side. I think we're just kind of reactive to what the state, and would that be a beneficial discussion to look at endowment and look at other sources of revenue?
We will. We'll take that. In fact, I think we had planned with France. I think we had planned to have you come to either the January or February meeting. Okay, so we'll start making topical presentations along those lines. Francis heads the foundation, as you know. Okay, but I had asked them to wait until the first of the year, just for logistic reasons. Thank you for your engagement today. I really appreciate it. I'm very proud of the work we're doing. I don't need to cut it off. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, just before we go, if there's a group going to Tallahassee, it would be helpful for me just to have an understanding of what the unit metrics are prior to then, so you know what the cost is.
Happy to do that.
Okay.
Let's do this. Let's we did take occasion to meet with you
Right.
on some things, and I think we're ready to get back to you. We have a budget briefing presentation. So Bob, we'll get on your schedule to make sure we give you some background and context. I think Terry and Ken, you guys have an ongoing sense, but we'll make sure everybody has exactly the same information. Ken, some of the things that you asked for, we had already pulled as part of that background. Okay. Good.
Well, may we see the fruit of our labor this morning on our intramural? Jonathan, can you share?
So let's dive into our notes from earlier in the morning. Just starting off with the idea that we give students access and try not to let them fall off the wagon there. And then that takes us to our life plan and steps on not only giving them access, but how to make them be successful. And that led into the whole college experience. Being more proactive. I started off this drawing with trying to save students from the edge, but maybe they need a beating. I don't know. It basically is, an effort to save them from the ledge, save them from dropping out. The whole concept of losing heart in what you're doing. Then we led into more elements of the life plan here. And that led into this concept. Basically, the idea here was that there's a lot of good coming out of St. Pete College. There's a lot of good coming out of all of these initiatives and highlighted in red here. And the idea that we are helping students to succeed with these efforts, basically helping them find the heart and staying on plan and providing them with a successful pathway. So,
Support you today.
I think we're good. Yes, we're fine.
Okay. I first of all want to thank Andrea and her team here at the Collaborative Labs for hosting us and facilitating this discussion. It was fantastic. I had the pleasure of being here yesterday with the St. Pete Chamber and went through the same exercise. And no, it's unbelievable. It's amazing just the conversation that can be generated from a collaborative discussion like this. And I want to take this opportunity to thank all of you. There's a lot of dedication and passion in this room, and a lot of people that I have had the privilege of watching for a couple, 3 years now. And I am so proud when I'm in the community, and a lot of people know out in the community that I'm involved with this college, and they come up to me, and I can't tell you the great, great stories I hear all the time, and it's because of all of you in this room. And I think about when Dr. Law came in here, and I'm thinking back to the fact when I learned that he was a marathon runner. And I'm thinking, I hope you all are keeping up with them. And I know you are. And this is even the best part, because I had a conversation with a couple of you already this morning. He's taking you, and you all are traveling together in a direction that many of you have wanted to go for a long time. And it's just very, very exciting for me as a person who's just kind of along for the ride with you and enjoying it. And I'm just so proud of all of you. And I really mean that. Thank you. Anyone else? We'll adjourn if anybody else wants to say anything.
Thanks.
We're done. Thank you.
Thank you all.